The universe doesn't care about exploratory missions or 5-year journeys into the unknown. It doesn't pause for diplomatic protocols or universal translators. When the USS Enterprise-A punched through the fabric of reality at coordinates that shouldn't exist, emerging from a warped corridor that collapsed behind them like a dying star, Captain James T. Kirk had exactly 3 seconds to understand that everything had changed. Report. Kirk barked, gripping his command chair as the ship shuddered violently. Warp drive is offline, Captain. Scotty's voice crackled over the comm, thick with panic Kirk had rarely heard from his chief engineer. The subspace manifold it's like it hit a wall that shouldn't be there. We're venting plasma from the nacelles. Spock's fingers flew across his science station, his Vulcan features illuminated by displays showing readings that made no logical sense. Captain, our position is indeterminate. Star charts do not match any known Federation records. Background radiation signatures are inconsistent with our universe's quantum baseline. Our universe. Kirk stood, his mind racing. Are you saying? We are no longer in our dimension of origin, Spock confirmed, his tone clinical despite the magnitude of the statement. The spatial anomaly we encountered was not a singularity. It was a rupture between realities. Sulu's voice cut through the shock. Captain, I'm reading multiple contacts. Large vessels, unknown configuration. Jesus, they're huge. The view screen flickered to life, and Kirk felt his breath catch. Space ahead was filled with ships, massive, angular constructs that dwarfed even Starfleet's largest vessels. They moved with purpose, their hulls scorched and pitted, battle damage evident even from this distance. But it was what lay beyond them that turned Kirk's blood cold. A planet. Burning. Not metaphorically. Literally burning. Sections of the continental surface glowed white-hot, atmospheric clouds boiling away into space as lance-like beams of purple energy carved through the world like surgical instruments wielded by a sadistic god. Cities, he could see the geometrical patterns of cities, evaporated under the sustained bombardment. Scanning the attacking vessels, Spock reported, his voice tight. Energy signatures are unlike anything in Federation records. Plasma-based weapons operating at temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Celsius. The planetary bombardment is systematically sterilizing the surface. Estimated casualties. Captain, if that world was inhabited, we are witnessing genocide on a scale that defies comprehension. Kirk stared at the screen, watching a civilization die in real time. The Enterprise had encountered hostile species before, the Romulans, the Klingon, even Khan, but this was different. This was methodical. Purposeful. The complete eradication of a world. The human vessels are attempting to engage, Chekhov said from navigation, his Russian accent thickening with stress. But they are severely outmatched. Reading multiple hull breaches, critical damage across their formation. Human. Uhura turned from her station. Captain, I'm picking up distress signals. Audio only. The language it's English. Earth English. Kirk's jaw tightened. Humans. Under attack. Being slaughtered. Put it through. Static filled the bridge, then a voice, young, terrified, human, cut through the interference. Frigate Amsterdam to any UNSC vessels in range. We've lost engines, life support failing. Covenant cruiser is moving to finish us. If anyone can hear this, tell Earth we. The signal died in a burst of static. Captain, Sulu said quietly, the human frigate it's gone. The attacking vessel fired a single shot. Direct hit. There's nothing left but debris. Kirk watched the expanding cloud of wreckage that had been a ship full of people, full of human beings who died screaming into the void while their home world burned below them. The Federation had protocols for this. The Prime Directive. Non-interference. Observe and catalog but never intervene in the internal affairs of other species. But these weren't aliens. These were humans. And the Prime Directive had never contemplated standing by while humanity itself faced extinction. Mr. Sulu, evasive pattern delta. Scotty, I need those shields at maximum. Uhura, open all hailing frequencies, human and alien. Chekhov, target the nearest attacking vessel's weapons array. Captain, Spock said, rising from his station, we do not understand the political situation here. The Prime Directive. The Prime Directive doesn't apply when we're watching humans get massacred, Kirk snapped. We can sort out the politics after we keep those people from being vaporized. Uhura. Channels open, sir. No response from the alien vessels. The human ships are. Captain, they're hailing us. They sound confused. On screen. The view screen shifted, showing the interior of a human warship's bridge. The design was utilitarian, military, nothing like Starfleet's aesthetic. The man staring back at Kirk wore a uniform Kirk didn't recognize, gray and black, clearly military, his face smudged with ash and blood. Behind him, the bridge was chaos. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, crew members shouted damage reports, and through a cracked view screen beyond, the purple lances of energy continued their terrible work on the dying world. This is Captain James T. Kirk of the United Federation Starship Enterprise. We're reading your tactical situation. Do you require assistance? The officer's expression shifted through confusion, disbelief, and desperate hope in the span of a heartbeat. Federation. I don't know who you are or where you came from, but if you've got weapons, we need them now. I'm Commander Miranda Lawson, UNSC Thermopylae. We're the last line between that Covenant fleet and the evacuation transports. We've got 40,000 civilians on those ships, and if the Covenant breaks through. Understood, Commander. Enterprise is moving to engage. Kirk out. He cut the channel and turned to his crew. People, I know we're not in Kansas anymore, but those are humans down there and humans under fire up here. I don't care what universe we're in, we're not standing by while they die. Tactical, I want firing solutions on those alien vessels. Mr. Spock, analyze their shield technology. Find me a weakness. Scotty, reroute all available power to shields and phasers. Aye, Captain, Scotty's voice came back. But sir, we're running on fumes here. Warp drive's completely offline, and I can't promise how long the dilithium crystals will hold without proper recalibration. Then make them hold, Scotty. We've got nowhere to run anyway. Kirk settled into his command chair, his mind already running through tactical scenarios. The Enterprise was alone. Stranded in a universe at war. No Starfleet. No Federation. No backup. Just his crew, his ship, and a choice between Federation principles and human survival. All hands, this is the captain. Red alert. We're going into battle against an unknown enemy to protect human lives. If you want to see more factions enter the Halo universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a sci-fi faction or character you'd want to see in the comments below. Finish the fight. Kirk leaned forward, his eyes locked on the view screen where the alien fleet continued its methodical destruction. Mr. Sulu, take us in. Maximum impulse. Let's show these bastards what the Enterprise can do. The ship surged forward, her impulse engines flaring bright against the darkness, carrying Kirk and his crew into a war they didn't understand, in a universe that might kill them all. But they were Starfleet. And Starfleet didn't abandon people in need. Even if it meant everything they believed in was about to be tested in ways they couldn't imagine. The Enterprise cut through space like a blade, her hull gleaming against the backdrop of a dying world. Kirk watched the tactical display as his ship closed the distance to the Covenant fleet, 3 cruisers, each easily twice the Enterprise's mass, their hulls flowing with organic curves that seemed almost alive. They moved with unsettling grace, adjusting formation to continue their bombardment while simultaneously tracking the Enterprise's approach. 2,000 kilometers and closing, Sulu reported, his hands steady on the helm despite the sweat beading on his forehead. They're not breaking off their attack pattern. They don't see us as a threat, Spock observed from his station. Preliminary scans indicate their shields operate on a different principle than ours, energy-based barriers designed to disperse plasma and particle weapons. Our phaser technology may prove unexpectedly effective. Or completely useless, McCoy muttered from his position near the turbolift. We don't even know what the hell we're shooting at, Jim. Kirk ignored him. Uhura, any response to our hails? Nothing, Captain. Either they can't understand us, or they're not interested in talking. Then we'll make them interested. Chekhov, target the nearest cruiser's portside weapon emplacements. Fire when ready. Aye, Captain. Firing phasers. The Enterprise's phaser banks unleashed twin beams of coherent energy, orange-gold lances that crossed the void in microseconds. They struck the Covenant cruiser's shields, and Kirk leaned forward as the alien barrier flared brilliant blue-white, energy cascading across its surface like water against a dome. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shield collapsed in a localized failure, and the phaser beams carved through the cruiser's hull like a hot knife through butter. Atmosphere vented in explosive decompression, and secondary explosions rippled across the alien vessel's flank as internal systems overloaded. Direct hit. Chekhov shouted, genuine surprise in his voice. Their shields couldn't adapt to phaser frequency. We punched straight through. The effect on the Covenant fleet was immediate. All three cruisers broke formation, abandoning their planetary bombardment to wheel toward the Enterprise with predatory focus. Purple-white energy built along their hulls, coalescing into massive plasma charges that pulsed with barely contained fury. Evasive. Kirk ordered. Sulu's fingers danced across his console, and the Enterprise rolled hard to starboard. The Covenant plasma torpedoes missed by less than 100 meters, their passage close enough that proximity alarms shrieked across the bridge. The torpedoes continued past, impacting the debris field of a destroyed UNSC frigate and vaporizing what remained in a flash of superheated plasma. Shields at 87%, Spock reported. The plasma weapons generate significantly more thermal energy than typical disruptor or photon technology. A direct hit would prove problematic. Problematic, McCoy echoed. That's one way to put it. Jim, maybe we should. Scotty, can you give me more power to shields? The chief engineer's voice crackled back, strained. Captain, I'm already rerouting everything but life support. The EPS conduits weren't designed for this kind of sustained combat load. If we take too many hits. Understood. We'll try not to get hit. Kirk's mind raced, analyzing the tactical situation. 3-to-1 odds. Unknown enemy capabilities. No backup. The Federation's first contact protocols seemed laughably inadequate for ships that opened communication with genocide. The view screen flickered, and Commander Lawson's face reappeared, her expression caught between shock and desperate hope. Enterprise, what the hell kind of weapons are you packing? I've never seen shields fail that fast against directed energy. We need you to, her image distorted as another impact rocked her ship. Damn it. We're venting atmosphere on decks 4 through 7. Covenant's reforming for another pass. Kirk could see the UNSC formation on the tactical display, 5 ships, all showing critical damage, forming a defensive screen around a cluster of larger, slower vessels. The evacuation transports. 40,000 civilians, Lawson had said. 40,000 people waiting to see if they'd live through the next 5 minutes. Captain, Spock said quietly, the Covenant vessels are adjusting tactics. They're attempting to flank us, draw our fire away from the UNSC ships while the third cruiser targets the transports. Kirk saw it on the tactical display, a classic pincer movement, elegant and ruthless. The Covenant had recognized the Enterprise as the greater immediate threat and were moving to neutralize it while still completing their primary objective, killing everyone trying to escape. "They're trying to split our attention," Kirk said. "Force us to choose between defending ourselves or protecting those transports." "A logical strategy," Spock agreed. "We cannot effectively engage all three vessels simultaneously." Kirk's jaw tightened. This was the Kobayashi Maru, the no-win scenario. Except this time it was real, and there was no way to reprogram the simulation. "Then we don't play their game. Sulu, plot a course directly between the Covenant cruiser and those transports. Full impulse. Scotty, transfer all available power from weapons to forward shields." "All power?" Scotty sounded horrified. "Captain, that'll leave us defenseless." "No, Mr. Scott. It'll make us a very large, very stubborn shield." "Do it." The Enterprise surged forward, her impulse engines burning at maximum as she positioned herself directly in the Covenant cruiser's firing line. Kirk could see the alien vessel on the view screen now, close enough to make out details: the seamless purple hull, the glowing energy cores, the way its weapons arrays pulsed with building plasma charges. "They're firing," Chekhov warned. "Hold course," Kirk ordered. The Covenant plasma torpedoes struck the Enterprise's forward shields like the fist of an angry god. The ship bucked violently, consoles exploding across the bridge in showers of sparks. Kirk was thrown from his chair, catching himself against the railing as the lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red lighting. "Shields at 43%. Spock called out over the chaos. "Forward deflector grid is overloading. We cannot sustain another salvo of that magnitude." Kirk pulled himself back into his chair, tasting copper where he'd bitten his lip. "Did the transports get clear?" "Aye, Captain," Sulu confirmed, his console smoking but functional. "They're moving out of range. The UNSC ships are reforming, moving to support our position." On the view screen, Kirk could see the battered UNSC vessels limping forward, their MAC guns, massive magnetic accelerator cannons, according to the sensor data. Tracking the Covenant cruisers. The human ships were barely holding together, hulls breached, fires visible through shattered viewports, but they were still fighting. "Incoming transmission," Uhura announced. "It's Commander Lawson again." On screen. Lawson's bridge was in even worse condition than before, half the stations unmanned, bodies visible in the background being pulled away by crew members. But her eyes were fierce as she stared at Kirk. "Enterprise, you just saved 40,000 lives. I don't know who you are or where you came from, but you've got guts. We're moving to support your position. UNSC forces, concentrate fire on the lead Covenant cruiser. Let's return the favor." The 5 UNSC ships opened fire simultaneously, their MAC rounds crossing the void at relativistic velocities. The lead Covenant cruiser's shields flared under the kinetic bombardment, holding for 2 seconds before catastrophic failure. The rounds punched through the hull, and the alien vessel shuddered as internal explosions tore through its superstructure. "The Covenant cruiser is breaking apart," Chekhov reported. "Remaining 2 vessels are withdrawing." Kirk watched the alien ships accelerate away, their sleek forms vanishing into brilliant flashes of light that his sensors couldn't quite categorize. Not warp signatures. Not impulse burns. Something else entirely. "They're entering what appears to be a dimensional rupture," Spock said, studying his displays with intense focus. "A controlled tear in spacetime, allowing faster-than-light travel through an adjacent dimension. Fascinating. The energy requirements alone." "Later, Spock." Kirk stood, surveying the damage to his bridge. "Scotty, damage report." "We're a mess, sir. Forward shields are shot, EPS conduits are fused on decks 5 through 9, and the warp cores still offline. But we're alive, and the hull's intact. Give me 6 hours, and I can have us combat ready." You've got two. Uhura, open a channel to Commander Lawson. The UNSC officer appeared on screen, and for the first time, Kirk saw her expression shift to something approaching exhaustion and relief. Behind her, crew members were extinguishing fires, sealing breaches, treating wounded. The bridge of a ship that had been seconds from destruction. "Commander," Kirk said carefully, "we need to talk. Your people, this war, what we just saw down there, we need to understand what's happening." Lawson's expression hardened slightly. "Captain Kirk, I'm transmitting coordinates for the UNSC vessel Savannah. She's a frigate holding position at the edge of the system, coordinating what's left of the evacuation fleet. Her CO, Commander Sarah Palmer, will want to debrief you personally." She paused, and something unreadable crossed her face. "Be advised, Enterprise, you just entered a war that's been going on for 27 years. A war humanity is losing. The Covenant doesn't negotiate, doesn't accept surrender, and doesn't stop until every human world is glass and ash. Welcome to our universe, Captain. I hope you brought more than one ship." The transmission ended, leaving Kirk staring at the tactical display. The planet below was still burning, entire continents transformed into molten slag. Billions dead. And according to Lawson, this had been happening for nearly 3 decades. "Jim," McCoy said quietly, moving to stand beside the command chair, "what the hell have we gotten ourselves into?" Kirk didn't answer. He was watching the sensor readout of the UNSC fleet, ships held together by desperation and spite, crewed by people who'd been fighting a losing war for longer than some of his crew had been alive. Ships that had thrown themselves at overwhelming odds to save 40,000 civilians. The Federation had never faced anything like this. The Klingon were warriors, but they had honor. The Romulans were dangerous, but they could be reasoned with. What he'd just witnessed wasn't war, it was extermination. Systematic, relentless, absolute. And somehow, the Enterprise was now part of it. "Set course for the UNSC Savannah," Kirk ordered. "And someone get me everything we can pull from our sensors about those Covenant ships. If we're stuck in this universe, we need to understand what we're fighting." "Aye, Captain," Sulu acknowledged. As the Enterprise turned away from the dying world, Kirk caught one last glimpse of the destruction on the view screen. Cities that would never be rebuilt. Lives that would never be lived. A civilization erased because humanity had the misfortune to exist in a galaxy where religious zealots believed their extinction was divine mandate. The Federation believed in peace, in diplomacy, in the fundamental worth of all sentient life. Kirk was beginning to suspect that in this universe, those beliefs might get everyone killed. The UNSC frigate Savannah hung against the void like a scarred monument to human stubbornness. Her hull was pitted with plasma burns, entire sections of armor plating replaced with mismatched panels that spoke of desperate field repairs. Compared to the Enterprise's sleek lines, the Savannah looked like a flying fortress designed by people who'd forgotten what peace looked like. Kirk stood in the transporter room, Spock and McCoy flanking him, as Scotty worked the controls with visible frustration. "I'm telling you, Captain, the transporter's range is shot," Scotty said, shaking his head. "Whatever's different about the physics here, it's playing havoc with the annular confinement beam. I can get you over there, but it'll be a rougher ride than usual." "How rough?" McCoy asked warily. "Let's just say you might want to skip breakfast first, Doctor." Kirk stepped onto the pad. "We've survived worse." "Energize." The familiar tingle of the transporter beam caught him, but Scotty was right. Something was wrong. The dematerialization felt sluggish, like moving through thick syrup, and the rematerialization on the Savannah hit like a physical impact. Kirk stumbled as he reformed, catching himself against a bulkhead that was decidedly more utilitarian than any Starfleet vessel he'd served on. They'd materialized in what appeared to be a cargo bay, and Kirk's first impression was how worn everything looked. The deck plating showed decades of use, the lighting was harsh and industrial, and armed Marines in full combat armor immediately leveled weapons at them, weapons that looked disturbingly effective. "Stand down." A woman's voice cut through the tension. "They're expected." The Marines lowered their rifles but didn't move away, their helmeted faces inscrutable. The woman who'd spoken stepped forward, early 30s, dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, wearing the same gray-black uniform they'd seen on Commander Lawson. Her insignia marked her as a commander, and her eyes held the kind of exhaustion Kirk recognized from Starfleet officers who'd seen too much combat. "Captain Kirk. I'm Commander Sarah Palmer, Executive Officer of the Savannah. Welcome aboard." Her handshake was firm, almost challenging. "I'll be honest, when Lawson transmitted her report about a ship that appeared out of nowhere packing weapons we've never seen before, half the brass thought she'd suffered decompression psychosis. The other half wanted to know if you were Covenant." "We're human," Kirk said simply. "Though I'm guessing you have questions about where we came from." "Questions doesn't begin to cover it, Captain. Follow me. Captain Keyes wants to meet you personally." Palmer led them through corridors that reminded Kirk of submarine designs, cramped, efficient, every cubic meter optimized for function over comfort. Crew members they passed looked haggard, many sporting bandages or still wearing combat gear. No one spoke unnecessarily. This was a ship at war, and it showed in every detail. "How many ships did you lose?" Spock asked, his tone carefully neutral. Palmer's jaw tightened. "At the colony? 12 frigates, 3 destroyers, and a heavy cruiser. We evacuated maybe 15% of the civilian population before the Covenant broke through orbital defenses. The rest, she didn't finish. She didn't need to. They arrived at a conference room, or what passed for one on a military vessel. The space was dominated by a holographic display showing the star system, red icons marking the planet they'd just left and numerous debris fields. A man stood studying it, hands clasped behind his back. He turned as they entered. Captain Jacob Keyes was in his late 40s, his face weathered by command decisions Kirk could only imagine. His uniform was crisp despite the chaos, and his eyes assessed the Enterprise crew with the kind of tactical precision Kirk respected. "Captain Kirk." Keyes extended his hand. "Jacob Keyes, UNSC Navy. I've read Commander Lawson's report 3 times, and I still can't quite believe it. A ship with weapons technology that cuts through Covenant shields like they're not there, appearing from nowhere in the middle of a battle. You'll forgive me if I'm skeptical about the alternate universe explanation." "I don't blame you, Captain," Kirk replied. "If someone told me that story a week ago, I wouldn't have believed it either. But here we are." Keyes gestured to the chairs around the table. "Sit. We've got a lot to discuss, and not much time." The Covenant tends to follow up successful engagements quickly. As they settled in, McCoy leaned forward. "Captain Keyes, what we saw down there, the systematic destruction of that planet. Is that standard Covenant procedure?" "Standard?" Keyes' expression darkened. "Doctor, that's their only procedure. They call it glassing, superheated plasma bombardment until the entire planetary surface is molten silicate. 37 billion human beings have died that way over the past 27 years. We've lost more than 800 colonies." He pulled up a holographic display showing world after world, each marked with a red X, the Covenant doesn't occupy. They don't negotiate. They arrive, declare humanity an affront to their gods, and exterminate every living thing they find. Spock studied the display with intense focus. "Fascinating. Such a sustained campaign of xenocide suggests powerful ideological motivation. What is the nature of their religious doctrine?" "They worship an ancient civilization called the Forerunners," Palmer interjected. "Believe the Forerunners were gods who ascended to divine status by activating massive ring-shaped installations scattered across the galaxy. The Covenant thinks humanity's existence somehow blocks their own path to transcendence. So they're killing you for religious reasons," Kirk said slowly. "Have you attempted diplomatic contact?" tried to explain. "Captain," Keyes interrupted, his voice hard, "humanity has tried everything. We've offered peace, shared technology, territorial concessions, even subjugation. The Covenant's response has been consistent, complete extermination. They don't want our surrender. They want us extinct." The weight of that statement settled over the room like a shroud. Kirk had faced hostile species before, but this, genocidal war driven by religious conviction that couldn't be reasoned with, was something the Federation had never encountered. "What about these Forerunners?" Spock asked. "Are they still active? Could they be contacted to mediate?" Palmer and Keyes exchanged a glance. "The Forerunners disappeared over 100,000 years ago," Keyes said carefully. "They left behind incredible technology, weapons, installations, artificial intelligence constructs. We've found some of their artifacts. So have the Covenant. The difference is, Covenant technology is mostly reverse-engineered Forerunner tech. They've had centuries to study it. We've been playing catch-up for 3 decades, and we're still hopelessly outmatched." "Not against phasers, apparently," McCoy observed. "Your Commander Lawson seemed pretty impressed with our weapons." "Impressed is an understatement, Doctor." Keyes pulled up tactical data from the Enterprise's engagement. "Your directed energy weapons penetrated Covenant shields with minimal power degradation. Our own weapons, magnetic accelerator cannons, nuclear missiles, are kinetic or explosive. The Covenant has adapted their shielding over years of combat. But this?" He highlighted the phaser strike data. "This is completely outside their defensive parameters. If we could replicate this technology—" "Captain Keyes," Kirk cut in, reading where this was going, "I need to be clear about something. The Enterprise isn't here to be a weapons platform for the UNSC. We're Starfleet officers, bound by regulations and principles that—" "Principles?" Palmer's voice was sharp. "Captain Kirk, I respect that you have protocols. But we just lost another world. Another 800 million people. If your technology could save even one colony—" "Commander," Keyes said quietly, but with authority that silenced her. He turned back to Kirk. "Captain, I understand you're in a difficult position. You've been thrown into a war you don't understand, representing an organization that doesn't exist here. But I need you to understand ours. The UNSC is losing. Not slowly. Catastrophically. Current projections give humanity 5 to 10 years before total extinction. Every world we lose, every ship destroyed, brings that timeline closer." Kirk met Keyes' gaze and saw something there he recognized from every command officer who'd sent people into impossible odds, the weight of knowing that every decision meant life or death for thousands. Millions. "We're not asking you to become weapons dealers," Keyes continued. "But we are asking you to consider that in this universe, neutrality means standing by while an entire species is exterminated. I won't pretend the UNSC is perfect. We've made difficult choices, sacrificed people and principles in the name of survival. But we're the only thing standing between humanity and extinction." "Captain Kirk," Spock said quietly, "a question for Captain Keyes. What is the UNSC's ultimate strategic objective? Beyond survival, what would constitute victory?" Keyes was silent for a long moment. "Honestly, Commander, we don't think about victory anymore. We think about buying time. Evacuating populations before the Covenant arrives. Salvaging technology from destroyed ships. Finding Forerunner artifacts that might give us an edge. Every day we survive is a day we can get civilians to safer colonies, research better weapons, train more soldiers." His expression hardened. "We fight because the alternative is lying down and dying. And humanity doesn't do that." The conference room door hissed open, and a junior officer entered, snapping to attention. "Captain Keyes, sir. Priority message from Fleetcom. Office of Naval Intelligence wants to speak with you immediately." Classified channel. Key's expression didn't change, but Kirk saw the subtle tension in his shoulders. Understood. Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes. The officer saluted and left. Keyes turned back to Kirk. ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence. There. Let's say they're very interested in your arrival. Should we be concerned? Kirk asked. ONI is concerned with humanity's survival, Captain. Sometimes that makes them very useful allies. Sometimes, Keyes paused, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes their methods are questionable. They'll want to talk to you. I'd recommend being cautious about what you share. Palmer stood. I can escort your team to guest quarters while Captain Keyes takes his call. We've got limited space, but they're secure and private. Kirk nodded, recognizing a dismissal when he heard one. As they left the conference room, he caught Keyes pulling up a communication terminal, his expression unreadable. In the corridor, Palmer led them deeper into the ship. McCoy moved closer to Kirk, voice low. Jim, something about this whole situation stinks. Office of Naval Intelligence wants to talk. That's spy talk 4, we want to dissect your ship and figure out how to weaponize it. I'm aware, Bones. Kirk kept his voice equally quiet. Spock, analysis. Captain Keyes appears sincere in his assessment of the strategic situation, Spock said. However, his warning about ONI suggests internal UNSC factionalization. We should proceed with extreme caution. They arrived at what Palmer called guest quarters, small rooms with bunks, basic facilities, and notably, no external communication access. Palmer gestured them inside. I'll be outside if you need anything. Captain Keyes will want to continue the conversation once he's handled ONI. In the meantime, you're free to move around the ship, but certain areas are restricted. Fair warning, the crew's going to be curious about you. Friendly advice. Don't mention your weapons technology in casual conversation. Word travels fast, and not everyone in the UNSC shares Captain Keyes' diplomatic approach. She left them alone, the door sealing with a definitive hiss. McCoy immediately pulled out his tricorder, running scans of the room. No surveillance devices I can detect, but that doesn't mean much. Jim, we need to talk about what happens next. That Captain Keyes, he's selling us a story about desperate survival, but it's not a story, Bones. Kirk moved to the small viewport, staring out at the debris field that had been UNSC ships. We watched a planet die. Billions of people. And Keyes is telling us it's been happening for almost 30 years. And that gives us the right to hand over Federation technology? McCoy challenged. To become arms dealers for a military we know nothing about. The doctor raises a valid concern, Spock agreed. We have insufficient data to assess the moral and strategic implications of supporting either side in this conflict. The UNSC presents themselves as defending humanity against genocide, but we have not verified their claims, nor investigated the Covenant's actual motivations. Kirk turned from the viewport. So what do you suggest, Spock? We contact the Covenant, ask them politely why they're exterminating humanity. I suggest we gather more information before committing to actions that could alter the course of this war. Meanwhile, people die. Kirk's voice was quiet but intense. How many worlds burn while we're gathering information? The three officers stared at each other, the weight of the impossible decision hanging between them. The Federation's principles demanded neutrality, careful consideration, diplomatic solutions. But the Federation had never faced an enemy that wanted nothing but extinction. And somewhere in the darkness outside, the Covenant fleet was already moving toward its next target. The summons came 6 hours later. Kirk was reviewing sensor logs from the battle when Palmer appeared at their quarters, her expression professionally neutral but with an edge Kirk couldn't quite identify. Tension. Maybe concern. Captain Kirk, ONI wants to meet with you. Now. ONI specifically? Kirk stood, gesturing for Spock and McCoy to follow. Not Captain Keyes. Captain Keyes will be present, but this is ONI's show. Palmer's tone carried a warning. Section 3 sent a prowler, stealth ship, to collect you. They're waiting in the hangar bay. As they walked through the Savannah's corridors, Kirk noticed the change in atmosphere. Crew members who'd been merely curious before now watched them with something closer to wariness. Word had spread. The mysterious ship with impossible weapons had attracted attention from the intelligence apparatus, and nobody seemed happy about it. The hangar bay housed a vessel that looked like it had been designed by paranoid ghosts. The ONI prowler was matte black, its hull coating seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. No windows. No external markings. Just clean, predatory lines that screamed stealth and lethality. Two individuals waited at the prowler's ramp. The first was a woman in her 40s, wearing a black ONI uniform with minimal insignia. Her expression was professionally pleasant, but her eyes assessed Kirk and his officers with the cold precision of someone calculating threat levels and strategic value simultaneously. The second figure made McCoy actually stop walking. It stood over 7 feet tall, encased in armor that looked like it had been forged from some exotic alloy and painted the green of deep forests. The helmet was a featureless golden visor that reflected Kirk's face back at him, and every line of the armor suggested strength, speed, and violence held in perfect check. A rifle was mag-locked to the figure's back, something that looked like it could punch through starship hulls. Captain Kirk, the woman said, extending her hand. I'm Commander Perengoski, ONI Section 3. This is Spartan 117. You may have heard references to the Spartan program. Kirk shook her hand, feeling like he was being evaluated by every metric simultaneously. Commander. I've heard the term. I wasn't aware Spartans were augmented to this degree. The Spartan 2 program represents humanity's most effective weapon against Covenant forces, Perengoski said smoothly. Master Chief here has been responsible for more Covenant casualties than entire fleets. We thought his presence might help illustrate what we're fighting for. The Spartan, Master Chief, remained absolutely still, but Kirk had the distinct impression of being studied through that golden visor with an intensity that rivaled Spock's analytical focus. Impressive, Spock observed. May I inquire about the augmentation procedures? The armor alone appears to incorporate technology significantly beyond standard UNSC. We'll have time for questions aboard the Prowler, Perengoski interrupted smoothly. Captain Keyes has been temporarily reassigned to ONI oversight for this meeting. Shall we? It wasn't really a question. The Prowler's interior was as Spartan as its exterior, no viewports, minimal crew, maximum efficiency. They were led to a briefing room that somehow felt even more claustrophobic than the ship around it. Captain Keyes was already there, and Kirk noticed the subtle tension in his posture. Whatever was about to happen, Keyes wasn't entirely comfortable with it. Once they were seated, the Master Chief remained standing at parade rest near the door, a silent reminder of UNSC capabilities. Perengoski activated a holographic display. Captain Kirk, let me be direct. Your ship represents a quantum leap in weapons technology. Directed energy weapons that penetrate Covenant shields. Defensive systems that can withstand plasma bombardment. Propulsion that doesn't match anything in our database. She pulled up the Enterprise's engagement footage. One ship. One engagement. You inflicted more damage on a Covenant cruiser than our entire battle group managed in an hour of sustained combat. We got lucky, Kirk said carefully. The Covenant shields weren't calibrated for phaser frequencies. They'll adapt. Perhaps. But even if they do, your technology represents possibilities we haven't explored. Which brings me to why we're having this conversation. Perengoski leaned forward. Captain Kirk, where exactly did you come from? And I don't mean alternate universe. I mean specifically, what is the United Federation of Planets? How advanced is your civilization? How many ships do you have? And most importantly, her eyes hardened. Why are you really here? Kirk kept his expression neutral. I've explained our situation. We encountered a spatial anomaly that deposited us in your universe. Our warp drive was damaged in the transition. We're stranded. Stranded. Parangoski's tone suggested she didn't believe a word. Captain, I've spent 30 years in intelligence work. I've interrogated Covenant prisoners, investigated Forerunner sites, and dealt with more classified situations than you can imagine. So when a ship appears from nowhere with technology that could turn this war around, claiming to be from an alternate universe, you'll forgive me if I have questions. What kind of questions? McCoy interjected, his southern drawl taking on an edge. Because it sounds like you're calling us liars. I'm calling you an unknown variable, Doctor. In a war where humanity is losing, unknown variables are either opportunities or threats. I intend to determine which category you fall into. Spock raised an eyebrow. Commander, your skepticism is logical. However, I assure you our account is accurate. The Enterprise originates from a dimension where Earth developed faster-than-light travel via different physical principles. We encountered a quantum singularity that proved impossible to replicate, Parangoski finished. Conveniently leaving you stranded here, dependent on UNSC hospitality, with no way to verify your story. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Kirk glanced at Keyes, who looked distinctly uncomfortable but said nothing. The power dynamic was clear, ONI outranked ship captains when they chose to exercise authority. Commander Parangoski, Kirk said evenly, what exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting several possibilities, Captain. 1. You're exactly who you claim to be, travelers from another dimension. 2. You're from an isolated human colony with advanced technology, possibly Forerunner-derived, and you're using this alternate universe story as cover. 3. You're somehow connected to the Covenant, though that seems unlikely given your engagement tactics. 4. She paused. You're from Earth's future, using temporal manipulation technology we don't understand. Time travel? McCoy snorted. Lady, if we could time travel, we'd have gone back and prevented this whole mess. Would you, Doctor? Or would temporal mechanics prevent such interference? Parangoski pulled up new data, detailed scans of the Enterprise. Our long-range sensors have been analyzing your ship since you arrived. Your hull composition includes materials we can identify but can't produce at those purity levels. Your energy signature suggests a power generation system operating on principles we don't fully understand. And your crew, she looked directly at Spock. Commander, your biosigns are unusual. Elevated copper-based blood content. Reduced heart rate. You're not entirely human, are you? Spock's expression didn't change. I am half Vulcan. My father's species developed on a planet in our home dimension. I assure you, there are no Vulcans in your universe. That you know of. Parangoski turned back to Kirk. Captain, I'm going to make you an offer. Full cooperation, technical specifications of your weapons, defensive systems, propulsion technology, in exchange for UNSC support in repairing your warp drive and protecting your crew. We'll even help you search for a way home, if that's genuinely your goal. And if we refuse? Kirk asked quietly. The temperature dropped another few degrees. The Master Chief didn't move, but Kirk suddenly became very aware of the Spartan's presence. Then we have a problem, Captain. Because I cannot allow technology that could alter this war to remain outside UNSC control. Not when billions of human lives hang in the balance. Parangoski's voice was perfectly reasonable, which somehow made the threat more chilling. I'm not asking you to become weapons dealers. I'm asking you to help save humanity from extinction. Surely your Federation principles include preserving human life? Kirk felt the trap closing. She was good, appealing to his instincts while simultaneously threatening his crew. Classic interrogation technique, polished to a razor edge. The Federation, Kirk said slowly, has a prime directive. We don't interfere in the internal affairs of other civilizations. We don't provide advanced technology that could disrupt natural development. And we certainly don't let ourselves be coerced into becoming arms manufacturers. Even when the alternative is genocide? Parangoski challenged. Even then. Because once you start making exceptions, where do you stop? Parangoski studied him for a long moment, then smiled, cold and entirely without humor. Captain Keyes warned me you'd be difficult. He said you had principles. The problem with principles, Captain Kirk, is that they're a luxury people can afford when they're not facing extinction. She stood. Master Chief, please escort our guests to holding quarters. Comfortable ones, she added, seeing Kirk's expression harden. This isn't an arrest, Captain. Think of it as protective custody while we verify your story. Commander, Keyes started to object. Captain Keyes, this is a Section 3 matter. Your input has been noted. Parangoski's tone made it clear the discussion was over. She turned back to Kirk. You have 24 hours to reconsider cooperation, Captain. I suggest you use them wisely. The Covenant doesn't respect principles, and they sure as hell don't take prisoners. Ask yourself, what good are your Federation ideals if everyone who might benefit from them is dead? The Master Chief moved with surprising fluidity for something so massive, positioning himself between Kirk and the door. Not threatening. Just, present. A reminder of what the UNSC could do when it chose to. As they were escorted from the briefing room, Kirk caught Keyes' expression, frustration mixed with resignation. The captain had tried to warn them, but ONI operated by different rules. In the corridor outside, McCoy leaned close. Jim, we're prisoners. They're going to tear apart the Enterprise looking for technology they can weaponize. Not if Scotty has anything to say about it, Kirk murmured back. He's under orders to lock down all critical systems if we don't check in within 12 hours. And then what? McCoy hissed. They've got us on their ship, surrounded by their fleet. That walking tank back there could probably tear through a bulkhead with his bare hands. Spock's voice was barely audible. Captain, I believe Commander Parangoski is attempting to determine our value through coercion. However, her underlying concern is legitimate. She cannot afford to leave potential strategic assets uncontrolled when her civilization faces extinction. I know, Spock. Which is exactly why we need to find a way out of this that doesn't involve handing over phaser technology to a military intelligence organization. Kirk's mind raced through possibilities, discarding most as quickly as they formed. We need more information. About ONI, about the Spartans, about what the UNSC has really been doing in this war. They arrived at new quarters. Larger than the ones on the Savannah, but Kirk noticed the door sealed with a definitive magnetic lock after the Master Chief left them inside. Comfortable prison was still prison. McCoy immediately pulled out his tricorder, running scans. These walls are reinforced. Even if we could cut through them, we're in the middle of a ship surrounded by a fleet. Jim, I'm open to suggestions, because right now we're well and truly trapped. Kirk moved to the single small viewport, staring out at the UNSC fleet. Dozens of ships, all showing battle damage, all crewed by people fighting a war they were losing. Parangoski's words echoed in his mind. What good are your principles if everyone who might benefit from them is dead? It was the Kobayashi Maru again. No-win scenario. Help the UNSC and violate everything the Federation stood for. Refuse and watch humanity get exterminated. There had to be a third option. There was always a third option. He just had to find it before ONI decided that the Enterprise was more valuable as salvage than as an ally. Kirk had been trapped in worse situations. Captured by Klingon. Imprisoned on alien worlds. Even that time on Triskelion when they'd been forced to fight for the amusement of bored energy beings. But this felt different. This was humanity imprisoning humanity, driven by desperation so profound it had eroded the distinction between security and tyranny. He was about to suggest they attempt communication with the Enterprise when the door suddenly unsealed. Captain Keyes stepped inside, alone, and quickly closed the door behind him. His expression was grim. "I have approximately 3 minutes before ONI's surveillance catches this visit," he said without preamble. "Captain Kirk, I need you to understand something about Parangoski and Section 3. They're not evil. They're not even wrong, strictly speaking. But they've been fighting this war so long that they've forgotten there are lines you don't cross. Like imprisoning potential allies?" Kirk asked sharply. "Like doing whatever it takes to survive." Keyes moved closer, voice dropping. "The Spartan program. Did you wonder why Master Chief is so effective? The augmentation started when he was 6 years old. He and the other Spartan IAs were abducted from their families, replaced with flash clones that died within months, and subjected to military training that would be considered torture by any reasonable standard. Half of them died during the augmentation process. The ones who survived became the greatest soldiers humanity has ever produced." McCoy's face went pale. "They kidnapped children. Experimented on them. ONI sanctioned it. Halsey, the scientist who ran the program, justified it as necessary for humanity's survival against the insurrection. That was before the Covenant. Now." Keyes' expression was haunted. "Now the Spartans are the only reason we're still alive. Master Chief has saved entire worlds. Turned battles we should have lost into victories. He's a hero to every human being in UNSC space. Built on child soldiers," Kirk said quietly. "My God. Exactly, Captain. That's what this war has made us. That's what ONI does, makes impossible choices so the rest of humanity doesn't have to. They'll do the same with your ship if you let them. Disassemble it, reverse engineer every system, weaponize everything they can." Keyes paused. "And the worst part? They might be right to do it. Your phaser technology could save colonies. Millions of lives. How do you weigh Federation principles against that?" Spock stepped forward. "Captain Keyes, your candor is appreciated. However, I must note that providing advanced weapons technology rarely produces the desired strategic outcome. Historical analysis suggests." "Commander, with respect, we don't have time for historical analysis. Humanity has maybe 5 years before total extinction. We're past the point where we can afford to worry about strategic outcomes. We're in triage mode. Save who we can, any way we can." Kirk studied Keyes carefully. "Why are you telling us this? If you agree with ONI's approach." "I didn't say I agreed with it. I said I understood it." Keyes glanced at the door. "Captain Kirk, ONI is going to get what they want eventually. They'll offer you deals, make threats, maybe even stage an incident that requires your cooperation. What I'm telling you is that you have one chance to control the terms. Work with them voluntarily, set conditions, maintain some leverage. Because if you force their hand, they'll take everything and give you nothing." "You're asking us to surrender," McCoy said flatly. "I'm asking you to negotiate from a position of relative strength while you still have one." Keyes pulled out a data chip. "This contains unclassified information about the war. Battle records, casualty figures, Covenant fleet movements. Nothing ONI would object to you seeing, but enough to help you understand what we're fighting. Read it. Think about it. Then decide if your principles are worth more than human survival." He placed the chip on the table and moved to the door, then paused. "One more thing. Master Chief, Spartan 117. He's not just a weapon. He's a person. Most people forget that. ONI definitely forgets it. But he makes choices, follows his own moral code, protects people when he doesn't have to. Whatever was done to him, whoever made him what he is, he's still human. Key's voice softened. Maybe that's what I'm really trying to tell you. This war hasn't destroyed humanity. Not yet. But we're closer to that edge than anyone wants to admit. The door opened and closed, leaving the three Enterprise officers alone with the data chip and impossible choices. McCoy picked up the chip like it might explode. Jim, we can't trust anything ONI gives us. This could be propaganda. Could be, Kirk agreed. But Keyes isn't ONI. He's a ship captain trying to do the right thing in a war with no right answers. He took the chip and moved to the room's terminal. Let's see what they want us to know. The data that scrolled across the screen was devastating in its clinical precision. Harvest, first contact, 2525. Population, 3 million. Covenant fleet arrival, 9 ships. UNSC response, 3 destroyers. Outcome, total planetary loss. Population, 300 survivors. Reach, final major stronghold, 2552. Population. 703 million, military and civilian. Covenant fleet strength, 315 plus vessels. UNSC defense fleet, 152 vessels. Outcome, orbital defense collapsed. Estimated casualties, 700 million plus. The list went on. World after world. Billions dead. The UNSC's win-loss record was horrifying. For every engagement they won, they lost 10. For every Covenant ship destroyed, they lost 5. The strategic assessment was clear: humanity was being systematically exterminated, and conventional warfare wasn't working. Then came the Spartan records. Operation, Silent Storm, 2526. Spartan 2 Team, 4 operators. Mission, infiltrate Covenant destroyer, plant nuclear device. Outcome, Covenant vessel destroyed, fleet scattered, colony saved. Casualties, 0 Spartans, 1 UNSC support ship. Battle of Sigma Octanus 4, 2552. Spartan 2 Team, 3 operators plus local UNSC forces. Covenant ground forces, 4000 plus. Outcome, Covenant leadership eliminated, ground invasion repelled. Casualties, 0 Spartans, 47 UNSC Marines. Kirk read mission after mission where small Spartan teams accomplished what entire fleets couldn't. The data was undeniable: the Spartan program worked. Child soldiers created through methods that violated every principle the Federation held sacred had become humanity's most effective weapon. Fascinating, Spock murmured, reading over Kirk's shoulder. The force multiplication factor is extraordinary. A single Spartan unit provides combat effectiveness equivalent to a full company of conventional soldiers. Their children, Spock, McCoy snapped. Kidnapped. Experimented on. Half of them died during the augmentation process, and Keyes said that like it was an acceptable casualty rate. I did not say it was acceptable, Doctor. I merely noted the tactical effectiveness. Gentlemen. Kirk's voice cut through the brewing argument. We're missing the larger point. Look at this. He pulled up a classified addendum that had been included, probably by Keyes, not ONI. Project, Mjolnir, Mark 6 armor. Development cost, 500 million credits per unit. Equivalent to 2 UNSC frigates. Current deployment, 33 active Spartan IAs. Note, cost-benefit analysis suggests terminating Spartan program in favor of conventional fleet expansion. Recommendation rejected by FleetCom and ONI. Reasoning. Spartans provide strategic flexibility, morale boost, and mission profiles conventional forces cannot achieve. Translation: we need heroes, not just soldiers. Kirk sat back, processing the implications. The UNSC knew the Spartan program was horrifically expensive and morally questionable, but they maintained it anyway because humanity needed symbols of hope as much as weapons. "Jim," McCoy said quietly, "what Keyes is really showing us, it's that they've already crossed every line we'd refuse to cross. Child soldiers. Weapons of mass destruction. Probably worse things in files he didn't include. And they did it all because the alternative was extinction." "Indeed," Spock agreed. The question becomes, does an existential threat justify abandoning ethical constraints? And if we provide our technology to a civilization that has already demonstrated willingness to compromise fundamental moral principles, what are we enabling? Kirk stood and began pacing, a habit from his academy days when confronting impossible tactical problems. Starfleet General Order 1, no starship may interfere with the normal development of any alien life or civilization. The Prime Directive exists because we learned, the hard way, that giving advanced technology to less developed societies causes more harm than good. But this isn't less developed, McCoy argued. They're human. Our own species, just in a different universe. And they're being wiped out. By aliens who might have legitimate grievances we don't understand, Spock countered. We have heard only the UNSC perspective. Scientific objectivity requires. Scientific objectivity. McCoy's voice rose. Spock, we watched a planet burn. We saw billions die. What possible grievance justifies that? Unknown. Which is precisely my point, Doctor. We lack sufficient data to. A sharp bang against the door interrupted them. Then another. Kirk moved toward the sound as the third impact came, and suddenly the door's locking mechanism sparked and failed. The door slid open, revealing the massive armored form of Master Chief. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the Spartan's helmeted head turned, as if checking the corridor, and his synthesized voice emerged from the armor speakers. "Captain Kirk. You need to come with me. Now." Kirk's hand instinctively went to where his phaser would be, except ONI had confiscated their weapons. "Master Chief, if ONI sent you to." "ONI didn't send me." The Spartan's tone was flat, emotionless, but there was something underneath Kirk couldn't quite identify. Urgency, maybe. Captain Keyes was right. "Parangoski is planning to seize your ship within the hour. I'm giving you a chance to get back to the Enterprise before that happens." "Why would you do that?" Spock asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "Your loyalty is to the UNSC." The Master Chief was silent for a moment, and Kirk had the impression of some internal calculation happening behind that golden visor. When he spoke, it was with careful precision. "My loyalty is to protecting humanity, Commander. All of humanity. And I've spent enough time around ONI to know the difference between protection and control." He gestured toward the corridor. "There's a Pelican dropship in Hangar Bay 3. I've cleared the security protocols. It'll get you back to your ship. After that, what happens is up to you." Kirk made a split-second decision, the kind that had gotten him promoted and court-martialed in roughly equal measure. "Lead the way, Chief." They moved through the Prowler's corridors, the Master Chief's armor surprisingly silent for something so massive. Twice they encountered crew members, but the Spartan simply stated, "ONI business," and they hurried past without question. The authority he commanded was absolute. "Master Chief," Kirk said as they approached the hangar bay, "when this is over, if we survive, I'd like to talk. Really talk. About choices, and loyalty, and what it means to be human when someone's tried to turn you into a weapon." The Spartan didn't respond immediately. Then, almost too quietly to hear, "I'd like that too, Captain." The hangar bay doors opened, revealing a military dropship that looked like it had been designed to survive atmospheric re-entry and ground combat simultaneously. Master Chief gestured them toward the ramp. "Once you launch, you'll have maybe 10 minutes before ONI scrambles interceptors. I'd suggest using your transporter technology to get aboard fast. Kirk extended his hand. Thank you, Chief. You're risking a lot for people you just met. The Spartan looked at Kirk's hand for a moment, then clasped it, his armored grip carefully modulated to avoid crushing bones. Captain Keyes was right about you. You asked the questions we stopped asking a long time ago. He released Kirk's hand. Maybe that's what we need more than we need your weapons. Someone who still remembers there are lines you don't cross. The Master Chief turned and walked away, leaving Kirk, Spock, and McCoy staring after him. Did that 7-foot killing machine just have a crisis of conscience? McCoy asked quietly. No, Doctor, Spock replied. I believe he has been having one for quite some time. We simply provided a catalyst. Kirk climbed aboard the dropship, his mind already racing through the next moves. They'd escaped UNSC's custody, but that created a whole new set of problems. The UNSC would see it as confirmation they couldn't be trusted. Parangoski would double down on efforts to seize the Enterprise. And somewhere out there, the Covenant was still burning worlds. As the dropship's engines fired and they lifted toward the hangar bay's magnetic shield, Kirk made a decision. They weren't going to run. But they also weren't going to become UNSC's weapons lab. There was a third option. There was always a third option. He just had to find it before the UNSC, the Covenant, or his own principles got everyone killed. The Pelican dropship screamed through space toward the Enterprise, and Kirk was already on the comm to his ship. Scotty, we're coming in hot. Have transporters ready and shields up. We may have company. Aye, Captain. The chief engineer's voice was tight with worry. I've been monitoring UNSC comm traffic. They're not happy about whatever you did over there. Multiple ships are moving to intercept. Wait, belay that. They're standing down. Captain, the entire UNSC fleet just received orders to hold position. Kirk exchanged glances with Spock. Someone's overriding Parangoski. Captain Keyes, perhaps, Spock suggested. Or another faction within UNSC command structure. The dropship shuddered as it approached the Enterprise's coordinates. Through the forward viewport, Kirk could see his ship, sleek, elegant, utterly out of place among the angular UNSC vessels. Home. Or as close to home as they were going to get in this universe. Enterprise, free to beam up. Lock on to these coordinates. The transporter caught them mid-flight, the Pelican continuing on autopilot as Kirk, Spock, and McCoy materialized in the Enterprise's transporter room. Scotty was already there, sonic screwdriver in hand and looking like he hadn't slept in days. Captain. Thank God. I was about ready to mount a rescue operation, except we're surrounded by ships that could blow us to atoms. He gestured toward the corridor. Bridge is waiting for your orders, sir. Kirk hit the corridor at a run, his officers behind him. The bridge crew snapped to attention as he entered, and the sight of his chair, his station, his people steadied something in him that had been off balance since arriving in this universe. Status report, he ordered, dropping into the command chair. Sulu turned from the helm. UNSC fleet is maintaining position at 5,000 kilometers, Captain. No hostile moves, but we're definitely surrounded. 47 vessels in total, ranging from frigates to that heavy cruiser that just arrived an hour ago. Uhura, any communication? Multiple attempts, sir. ONI is demanding we stand down and prepare to be boarded for security inspection. Captain Keyes is requesting private communication. And, she paused, confused. There's a priority signal from something called Spartan Channel Zulu. It's encrypted, but the Master Chief's biosignature is attached. Kirk felt a grim smile touch his lips. Put the Chief through. Audio only. The bridge speakers crackled, and Master Chief's synthesized voice filled the space. Captain Kirk, you need to know what you've walked into. ONI is preparing to seize your vessel by force. The official story will be protective custody for your own safety. The reality is they want your technology and they're past the point of asking nicely. We kind of figured that out, Chief, Kirk replied. What's our tactical situation? Bad. The UNSC Infinity just entered the system. That's our largest warship, 5 kilometers long, packed with Max supercannons and carrying 4 Spartan 4 fire teams. If Parangoski gives the order, they'll disable your ship and board you before you can jump to, whatever your FTL system is called. Warp drive. Which is currently offline, Kirk admitted. We can't run even if we wanted to. Silence on the line. Then. Captain, I'm transmitting coordinates for a classified location. Forerunner installation, inactive for millennia. ONI knows about it but considers it low priority, no obvious weapons or technology. If you can reach it, you might be able to use the site to repair your ship or find a way home. Why are you helping us? Kirk asked bluntly. Another pause. Because Captain Keyes was right. We've been fighting so long we forgot there are some lines you don't cross. If ONI takes your ship by force, reverse engineers your technology, weaponizes it, we become the thing we're fighting against. Maybe not as obvious as the Covenant's genocide, but the same corruption underneath. Someone needs to remember that. Might as well be you. The transmission cut off, leaving Kirk staring at the view screen where the UNSC fleet waited like patient sharks. Captain, Spock said quietly, the Master Chief is correct about our tactical situation. We cannot outrun them, and sustained combat would result in our destruction. However, his suggestion of fleeing to a Forerunner installation presents significant unknowns. Like whether it's actually abandoned or if it's a trap, McCoy added. Jim, we don't even know what the Forerunners were. For all we know, their installations are death traps. Kirk pulled up the coordinates Master Chief had transmitted. The location was deep in an asteroid field, far from any colonized systems. Perfect place for an ambush. Or a genuine safe harbor. Uhura, open a channel to Captain Keyes. The view screen shifted, showing Keyes on the bridge of the Savannah. His expression was carefully neutral, but Kirk saw the warning in his eyes. Captain Kirk. ONI has ordered me to inform you that failure to comply with boarding procedures will be considered a hostile act. I strongly suggest. Captain Keyes, Kirk interrupted, I want you to know that we appreciate your candor earlier. You showed us who the UNSC really is. Not the propaganda version ONI wants us to see, but the reality. People making impossible choices in an impossible war. Keyes' expression flickered. He knew Kirk was speaking for the record, making sure ONI heard every word. Here's our position, Kirk continued. The Federation doesn't negotiate under threat. We don't hand over technology to organizations that kidnap children and turn them into weapons, no matter how effective those weapons are. And we sure as hell don't submit to protective custody from intelligence agencies with a history of making people disappear. Captain Kirk, Keyes started, but Kirk cut him off. But we also don't stand by while billions of humans get exterminated by religious zealots. So here's what we're going to do. We're leaving. Going to assess our situation, repair our ship if possible, and figure out our next move without ONI breathing down our necks. Once we've done that, if we decide to help the UNSC, it'll be on our terms. Not ONI's. Not Section 3's. Ours. Keyes was silent for a moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. I understand, Captain. For the record, I'm obligated to inform you that leaving UNSC protection in hostile space is extremely dangerous. The Covenant has scouts throughout this sector. It was a warning. A genuine one. Kirk appreciated it. Noted, Captain. Enterprise out. The channel closed. Kirk turned to his crew. Scotty, how's our impulse power? At full capacity, sir. It's the warp drive that's knackered. I can get us moving at sublight, but if those UNSC ships want to catch us, they won't. Kirk hoped he was right. Sulu, plot a course for those coordinates. Maximum impulse. Evasive pattern Omega, make us hard to target but don't make it look like we're running scared. Aye, sir. Chekhov, monitor the UNSC fleet. If any ship breaks formation to intercept, I want to know immediately. The Enterprise's impulse engines flared, and the ship began moving. Kirk watched the tactical display as the UNSC fleet's formation shifted, vessels tracking their movement but not moving to intercept. They're letting us go, Uhura said, surprise in her voice. No pursuit vectors. The Infinity is. Captain, the Infinity is moving to block 3 UNSC destroyers that were beginning intercept courses. Someone with more authority than Parangoski just gave stand-down orders, Spock observed. Curious. Kirk had a suspicion about who that might be, but he kept it to himself. Master Chief had bought them time, maybe by calling in favors Kirk couldn't even guess at. The Spartan had more influence than his official rank suggested. They were 20 minutes into their course when Uhura suddenly stiffened at her station. Captain, I'm picking up a transmission. It's not UNSC. Not anything in our database. Put it through. What emerged from the speakers wasn't language. It was more like music, haunting, layered harmonics that seemed to bypass the ear and resonate directly in the skull. Beautiful and terrifying simultaneously. That's Covenant, Scotty breathed, his face pale. I heard recordings from the battle. That's how they communicate. The transmission continued for 15 seconds, then cut off abruptly. They know we're here, Kirk said quietly. Sulu, time to those coordinates. 47 minutes at current speed, sir. Can we go faster? Not without burning out the impulse manifolds. Kirk made the calculation. 47 minutes. They could hold out that long. Probably. Then every alarm on the bridge began screaming simultaneously. Multiple contacts. Chekhov shouted. Bearing 270 Mark 15. Reading as. Bourgeois moi. Captain, it's a Covenant fleet. 15 vessels, including 3 of those cruiser-class ships and something much, much larger. The view screen shifted to show the Covenant fleet emerging from what sensors identified as slip space ruptures, tears in reality that made warp signatures look elegant by comparison. The ships themselves were massive, their purple-silver hulls flowing with organic curves, energy crackling across their surfaces. But it was the largest vessel that made Kirk's blood run cold. It dwarfed even the UNSC Infinity, a carrier-class ship over 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons and launching what looked like fighter craft in swarms. They're moving to intercept us, Sulu reported, his voice tight. ETA to firing range, 4 minutes. UNSC fleet is responding, Uhura added. They're moving to engage the Covenant. Captain Keyes is hailing us. Kirk didn't hesitate. On screen. Keyes looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Captain Kirk, we're moving to intercept that Covenant fleet, but we're outnumbered 3-1. They're not here for us. They're here for you. That transmission you received. It was a targeting beacon. The Covenant just marked the Enterprise as a high-priority threat. Recommendations? Kirk asked, respecting Keyes' experience. Run. We'll buy you as much time as we can, but you need to reach those coordinates or jump to slip space, he paused. Wait, your FTL is offline. Damn it. Kirk, you need to make it to that Forerunner installation. It's your only chance. Some of those sites have defensive systems. If you can activate them. The transmission dissolved in static as the UNSC fleet engaged the Covenant at extreme range, their Mach rounds crossing the void at relativistic velocities. Kirk watched the battle unfold on tactical displays, humanity's desperate last stands made real-time and close enough to kill him. The UNSC ships were outmatched but fighting with suicidal bravery, throwing themselves between the Enterprise and the Covenant fleet. "Captain," Spock said urgently, "I am detecting massive energy buildups across the Covenant carrier. Analysis suggests a directed energy weapon of unprecedented scale. If they fire..." The Covenant carrier's ventral surface erupted in purple-white light. A lance of plasma so dense it looked almost solid crossed the distance between fleets in under 3 seconds, striking the UNSC heavy cruiser that had been leading the formation. The human ship simply ceased to exist. Vaporized. 1,100 crew members gone in an instant of superheated plasma. "Evasive," Kirk ordered. "Scotty, divert all power to shields and engines. Forget the weapons, we're not fighting our way through this." "Captain, we have incoming." Chekhov's voice cracked with stress. "Covenant fighters, 200+ contacts. They're moving faster than anything I've ever seen." The viewscreen showed the swarm of alien fighters, elegant, deadly, moving with impossible agility. They wove through UNSC defensive fire like dancers, their plasma weapons hammering at the human ship's hulls. And they were heading straight for the Enterprise. Kirk gripped his chair's armrests, watching death approach at relativistic speeds, and made a decision that would either save his crew or doom them all. "Sulu, forget evasive patterns. Maximum impulse, direct course to those coordinates. Punch through their formation if you have to." "Sir, that's..." "Do it." The Enterprise surged forward, her impulse engines screaming as she accelerated directly toward the Covenant fleet. Plasma fire erupted around them, the shields flaring with each near miss, but Sulu piloted like a man possessed, threading between capital ships and fighter swarms. A Covenant cruiser loomed ahead, directly in their path, its weapons charging. "Brace for impact," Kirk shouted. The cruiser fired. The Enterprise's shields took the hit and failed catastrophically, plasma bleeding through to scorch the hull. Emergency klaxons screamed. But they were through, past the Covenant line, racing toward coordinates that might hold salvation or just another way to die. Behind them, the UNSC fleet was being systematically destroyed, buying the Enterprise's escape with their lives. Kirk watched good people die for strangers, and wondered if the Federation's principles were worth the price humanity was paying. The asteroid field appeared on sensors like a wall of stone and ice, each tumbling rock massive enough to crack the Enterprise's hull if they collided at speed. Sulu's hands flew across his console, adjusting their trajectory microsecond by microsecond as the ship plunged into the maze. "Covenant fighters still in pursuit," Chekhov reported, his voice hoarse. "They're not breaking off." Kirk could see them on the tactical display. Sleek alien craft that moved through the asteroid field like it wasn't even there, their plasma weapons lighting up the darkness with each shot. The Enterprise's shields were gone, her hull already showing scorch marks and microfractures. One direct hit would punch through to critical systems. "There." Spock pointed to his scanner. "Captain, I'm detecting the installation Master Chief referenced. It's embedded in the largest asteroid. Artificial structure, definitely Forerunner in origin based on the energy signatures. There's an entrance, but it's narrow, approximately 30 meters clearance on either side." 30 meters? Scotty's voice crackled over the comm, horrified. "Captain, the Enterprise is 300 meters at the beam. We'll never fit." "We don't have to fit the whole ship, Mr. Scott. Just get close enough for transporters." Kirk turned to Uhura. "Send coordinates to the transporter room. Prepare to beam an away team directly into that installation." "Captain," Spock said urgently, "I must advise against dividing our forces. The installation's interior is completely unknown. We could be transporting directly into a trap. Or into the only shelter we're going to get." Kirk stabbed the comm. "Scotty, can you get transporters working at this range?" "Barely, sir." The asteroid's composition is interfering with the annular confinement beam, and we're still dealing with whatever's wrong with the laws of physics in this universe. I can maybe get 6 people across, but I wouldn't guarantee they'll arrive in one piece. 6 people. Kirk's mind raced through the tactical calculus. He needed Spock's scientific expertise and McCoy's medical skills. Security personnel. Someone who knew Forerunner technology, which meant nobody, since they'd arrived in this universe less than 48 hours ago. A Covenant plasma bolt struck the asteroid 20 meters off their starboard bow, vaporizing thousand-year-old ice and stone in a flash of superheated gas. "Decision time, Captain," Sulu said tightly, wrestling with the helm as the Enterprise wove between tumbling rocks. Spock, McCoy, and 4 security personnel. Standard away team loadout. Objective: access the installation, determine if it has defensive capabilities or shelter we can use. Kirk stood. "I'm going with them." "Jim, you can't," McCoy started. "The Enterprise needs to stay mobile, draw off those fighters. Sulu can do that better without me second-guessing his every move." Kirk moved toward the turbolift. "Mr. Sulu, you have the con. Keep the ship in one piece and buy us time. If the situation becomes untenable, retreat to the UNSC fleet. Captain Keyes will provide sanctuary. And leave you stranded in an alien installation surrounded by Covenant." Sulu's expression was grim. "Sir, with respect. Those are your orders, Commander." Kirk softened his tone. "I trust you, Hikaru. Keep my ship safe." The turbolift doors closed on Sulu's reluctant nod. The transporter room was organized chaos. For security officers, Hendricks, Mallory, Chen, and Diaz were checking phaser rifles and tricorders. McCoy was loading his medical kit with supplies that probably wouldn't help against alien technology but made him feel better anyway. Spock stood at the transporter console with Scotty, studying the targeting scanners. "I'm reading multiple energy signatures inside the installation," Spock reported. "Dormant power sources, possible automated systems. The structure appears stable, but I cannot guarantee habitability." "Nothing in this universe has been guaranteed, Commander." Kirk stepped onto the transporter pad, checking his own phaser. "Scotty, energize when ready." The chief engineer's hands moved across the controls, his expression professionally worried, which for Scotty meant terrified but trying not to show it. "Aye, sir." "And Captain? Try not to activate anything that'll blow up half the asteroid. We're close enough that we'd catch the shrapnel." "Noted." "Energize." The transporter caught them, and Kirk felt the wrongness immediately. The beam was struggling, fighting against interference that made the entire process feel like being pulled through freezing mud. Reality flickered, Enterprise transporter room, darkness, something vast and incomprehensible, then. They materialized in a corridor that made Kirk's breath catch. The Forerunner installation was nothing like the utilitarian UNSC vessels or even the Enterprise's Starfleet aesthetic. The walls were smooth dark metal that seemed to drink in light, interrupted by panels of pale blue luminescence that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. The architecture was simultaneously organic and geometric, curves and angles that shouldn't work together but created something hauntingly beautiful. And old. Kirk could feel the age of the place, the weight of millennia pressing down like atmosphere. "Tricorder readings are anomalous," Spock said, studying his device. "The structure's composition defies easy classification. Molecular bonding at the quantum level, materials that appear to be self-repairing." The Forerunner's technological sophistication was extraordinary. They were also extinct, McCoy pointed out, medical tricorder scanning for biohazards. "Let's try not to activate whatever killed them." Hendricks, the senior security officer, gestured his team into defensive positions. "Captain, which direction?" Kirk pulled out his own tricorder, scanning for the power signatures Spock had detected from orbit. "That way." Looks like some kind of central chamber, maybe a control room. Stay alert, we don't know if this place has automated defenses. They moved through corridors that twisted in ways that seemed to violate Euclidean geometry, the luminescent panels providing just enough light to see by. Twice they passed chambers filled with technology Kirk couldn't even begin to understand. Crystalline structures that hummed with dormant energy, platforms that hovered without visible means of support, walls covered in symbols that shifted when looked at directly. "Captain," Chen whispered, "this place is giving me the creeps. It's like walking through a tomb." "A tomb for gods," Mallory agreed quietly. Kirk couldn't disagree. The Forerunners had built this installation at least 100,000 years ago, according to UNSC records. They'd created weapons capable of sterilizing galaxies, then disappeared, leaving only these monuments behind. What kind of civilization reached that level of advancement and then simply ended? They rounded a corner and stopped. The corridor opened into a chamber so vast Kirk couldn't see the far wall. The ceiling was hundreds of meters overhead, lost in darkness. The floor was transparent, revealing machinery beneath that stretched down into the asteroid's core. Impossible mechanisms that moved without sound, processing energy or information through principles Kirk's tricorder couldn't identify. In the center of the chamber, suspended in mid-air, was a sphere approximately 3 meters in diameter. It glowed with soft blue light, geometric patterns racing across its surface in hypnotic complexity. "That's the power source," Spock said, his tricorder practically vibrating with the readings. "Captain, the energy output is staggering. This single device could power Earth's entire electrical grid for centuries. And it appears to be operating at minimal capacity. Perhaps 5% efficiency." Kirk approached the sphere slowly, instincts screaming warnings his conscious mind couldn't articulate. "Can we interface with it?" "Unknown. The technology is unlike anything in Federation databases. However, I am detecting what may be control interfaces along the chamber's perimeter." They moved toward the nearest wall, where panels of the same luminescent material pulsed in rhythmic patterns. Spock extended his tricorder, and the moment its scanning beam touched the panel, everything changed. The sphere blazed to life, its glow intensifying to painful brightness. The geometric patterns across its surface accelerated into a blur. And from somewhere deep in the installation, a sound emerged, not quite mechanical, not quite organic, a resonance that Kirk felt in his bones. "Spock, what did you do?" McCoy shouted over the rising hum. "I merely scanned the interface." "I did not." The sphere spoke. The voice emerged from everywhere and nowhere, layered harmonics that bypassed the ears and formed words directly in Kirk's mind. The language was unknown, but somehow, impossibly, comprehensible, as if the sphere was translating itself in real time. "Reclaimer presence detected. Installation 03 subsidiary monitoring station coming online. Identifying. Unknown biosignatures. Analyzing. Analysis complete. You are not Reclaimer. You are not Forerunner. You are not catalogued." The sphere's glow intensified, and Kirk felt weight pressing down on his mind, something vast and ancient examining him like a specimen under a microscope. Query: identify species. Identify purpose. Identify authorization codes. Spock stepped forward, voice steady despite the pressure. "We are human. We seek shelter from hostile forces. We have no authorization codes, we are not from this reality." Silence. The pressure increased until Kirk thought his skull might crack. Human. Species classification, Reclaimer. Tier 7 technological development. Inefficient. Primitive. Insufficient for installation access. The sphere's pattern slowed. However. Biosignatures anomalous. Quantum signature mismatch with local spacetime. You are. Elsewhere. Elsewhen. Other. "We're from an alternate universe," Kirk managed through gritted teeth. "Our ship was damaged. We need alternate dimensional origin detected." "Interesting. The domain records no such incursions since the activation. You are unique. Unprecedented." The pressure suddenly released, and Kirk gasped, almost falling. McCoy caught his arm, medical tricorder already scanning. "Jim, your neural activity just spiked off the charts. Whatever that thing is, it was inside your head. Apologies. Organic minds fragment easily. Recalibrating interface protocols." The sphere's voice became almost apologetic. "You seek defensive capabilities. Query. Against what threat?" "The Covenant," Kirk said. "Religious aliens trying to exterminate humanity." "Covenant. Cross-referencing. Species alliance composed of Sangaili, Ungoi, Kajiwayar, Lekalo, Jirolhani, Sayanchayum. Theological construct centered on Forerunner worship. Classification, heretical misinterpretation. Dangerous to local reclaimers." The sphere pulsed, and holographic displays erupted across the chamber. Tactical readouts showing the asteroid field, the Enterprise dodging through the rocks, and the Covenant fleet moving into position around the field's perimeter. "Your vessel is insufficient for extended engagement. Covenant fleet composition includes assault carrier capable of planetary bombardment. Probability of your survival, 0.003%. Can this installation defend us?" Kirk asked directly. Installation 03 subsidiary station possesses minimal defensive capabilities. Primary function, monitoring. Secondary function, communications relay. Tertiary function, emergency Forerunner personnel shelter. The sphere paused. "However, dimension-displaced humans represent unique research opportunity. Preservation protocols activated. Defensive systems engaging." The chamber shuddered. Deep in the asteroid's core, mechanisms that had slept for 100 millennia began to wake. On the Enterprise's bridge, Sulu was fighting the battle of his life. "Covenant fighters at 2 o'clock, he shouted, throwing the ship into a roll that made the inertial dampeners scream. "Return fire, all phasers." The Enterprise's phaser banks tracked the alien craft, scoring hits that sent 3 fighters tumbling out of control into asteroid collisions. But for every fighter destroyed, 2 more appeared, and the capital ships were moving into bombardment positions. "Mr. Sulu," Uhura called out, "I'm reading massive energy buildups from the asteroid where the captain transported. The entire structure is. I don't know what it's doing, but it's powering up." Sulu watched his tactical display as the Forerunner installation came online. Weapons platforms emerged from the asteroid's surface, elegant, deadly constructs that tracked the Covenant fleet with mechanical precision. And then they fired. Lances of orange-gold energy, similar to the Enterprise's phasers but orders of magnitude more powerful, crossed the void and struck Covenant ships with devastating accuracy. Shields that had withstood UNSC MAC rounds collapsed under the sustained barrage. Hulls designed to survive plasma bombardment cracked and shattered. In 30 seconds, the Forerunner installation destroyed more Covenant ships than the entire UNSC fleet had managed in the previous battle. The remaining Covenant vessels broke formation, retreating to safer distances, their weapons tracking the asteroid but not firing, as if they understood what they were facing and knew better than to provoke it further. Sulu allowed himself one breath of relief before stabbing the calm, "Captain Kirk, I don't know what you did down there, but it's working. The Covenant fleet is holding position. We've got breathing room." Kirk's voice came back, slightly distorted by the asteroid's interference. "Acknowledged, Mr. Sulu. It appears we've made a new friend. Or at least convinced an ancient AI that we're worth keeping alive. Captain, what exactly did you activate?" There was a pause. When Kirk responded, his voice carried a weight Sulu recognized, the tone of a captain who just made a deal with something he didn't fully understand. Something old, Sulu. Something that remembers when the Forerunners walked the galaxy. And something that just might give us the answers we need. On the view screen, the Forerunner installation pulsed with ancient power, weapons tracking the Covenant fleet with patient, eternal menace. Humanity's first contact with Forerunner technology had just escalated dramatically. And Kirk had the distinct feeling they'd opened a door that couldn't be closed. The sphere's luminescence shifted through spectrum bands Kirk's eyes couldn't quite process, settling on a shade of blue that seemed to exist slightly outside normal space. I am designated 859 Static Carillon. Forerunner Monitor Class Ancilla, assigned to Installation 03 Subsidiary Observation Post 447. The sphere rotated slowly, geometric patterns rippling across its surface. My primary function was monitoring potential receding sites post-activation. Secondary objectives included maintenance of local Forerunner infrastructure and preventing unauthorized access by inferior species. Yet you're helping us, Spock observed. Your protocols would seem to prohibit assisting non-Forerunner entities. Protocols written 100,000 years ago do not account for dimensional refugees with unique technological signatures. Static Carillon's voice held something almost like amusement. Additionally, the Covenant's theological misinterpretation of Forerunner purpose represents heresy. They believe Halo installations grant transcendence. Incorrect. Halo installations cause extinction. Their worship is problematic. Kirk stepped closer to the sphere, feeling the hum of ancient power vibrating through his chest. The UNSC mentioned Halo rings. What are they really? Weapons. Superweapons. Galaxy-sterilizing instruments designed to eliminate all sentient life within a 25,000 light-year radius. Static Carillon stated it with the casual tone of someone discussing weather patterns. The Forerunners constructed 7 installations to combat an existential threat called the Flood, a parasitic organism capable of consuming all biological matter in the galaxy. McCoy's face went pale. You're telling me there are weapons scattered around this galaxy that can kill everything? And the Covenant wants to activate them? Affirmative. The Covenant leadership, specifically the hierarchs, seek to initiate what they call the Great Journey. They believe activation will grant divine transcendence. Reality, activation will kill every sentient being within range, including the Covenant themselves. Kirk felt ice form in his gut. Do they know? Do the Covenant leaders understand what the rings actually do? Static Carillon was silent for a moment, remarkable for an AI that processed information at quantum speeds. Analysis of Covenant communications intercepts suggests, the prophets know. The hierarchs understand Halo's true function. They activate anyway because their power structure depends on religious zealotry. Alternative hypothesis, they believe themselves exempt from extinction due to divine favor. Conclusion, irrelevant. Genocide proceeds regardless of leadership's awareness. Jesus Christ, McCoy breathed. They're going to kill everyone, including themselves, because their religion demands it. Fascinating, Spock murmured, though his tone suggested horror rather than scientific curiosity. A civilization-wide death cult with access to weapons of unimaginable destructive capacity. Captain, this fundamentally alters our understanding of the conflict. Kirk's mind raced through implications. The UNSC wasn't just fighting a war of survival, they were fighting to prevent galaxy-spanning extinction. And the Covenant wasn't simply exterminating humanity out of religious conviction, they were searching for Halo rings to activate, which would kill everyone, human and Covenant alike. Static Carillon, where are these Halo installations now? Installation 04, destroyed by human reclaimer designated Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, approximately 6 months ago. Installation 05, currently in contested space, subject to Covenant occupation. Installation 03, secure under Forerunner protocols. Installations 01, 02, 06, 07, locations classified. Recommendation: prevent Covenant access to all remaining rings. One's already been destroyed. Kirk turned to Spock. Master Chief destroyed an entire Halo installation. Affirmative. Spartan 117 detonated UNSC vessel, Pillar of Autumn fusion drives while in close proximity to Installation 04's control room. Resulting explosion fragmented ring structure. Tactically effective. Strategically questionable. Collateral damage, significant. Kirk remembered the armored figure who'd helped them escape ONI custody. The Master Chief wasn't just an effective soldier. He'd literally saved the galaxy from extinction by blowing up a Halo ring. And ONI had turned him into that weapon by kidnapping him as a child. The moral calculus of this universe kept getting more complicated. "Can you repair our ship?" Kirk asked directly. "Our faster-than-light drive operates on different physical principles than this universe's slip space. The transition damaged it severely. Static Carillon's patterns accelerated, processing. Analyzing your vessel's quantum signature. Warp drive technology detected. Subspace manipulation via matter-antimatter reaction modulated through dilithium crystal matrix. Elegant. Inefficient. Incompatible with local space-time topology. Can you fix it or not?" McCoy pressed. "Repair, possible. Requires recalibration of dilithium resonance frequencies to account for local quantum fluctuations. Estimated time, 47 hours. Probability of success, 67%. Alternative. I can provide slipspace drive compatible with your vessel's power systems. Installation time, 12 hours. Probability of success, 94%. Kirk exchanged glances with Spock. A slipspace drive meant committing to staying in this universe, at least temporarily. But 94% success rate versus 67%, and a fraction of the time. "Before we decide," Spock interjected, "I must ask, what is your assessment of our presence in this universe? Does our dimensional displacement pose risks we should be aware of?" "Dimensional barriers exist for quantum stability reasons. Your presence creates minor spacetime perturbations. Negligible under normal circumstances. However, static Carillon's glow intensified. Your vessel's energy signature has attracted attention. The Covenant designation you as Oracle's gift, Forerunner technology manifesting to aid true believers. They will pursue you relentlessly. Additionally, your weapons technology represents paradigm shift in current conflict. Multiple factions will seek to acquire or destroy you. We've noticed, Kirk said dryly. ONI already tried to seize the Enterprise. Office of Naval Intelligence Section 3, ruthless. Effective. Morally compromised. Probability they will attempt seizure again, 97%. Recommendation, maintain distance from UNSC command structures while leveraging tactical alliances with individual commanders. Like Captain Keyes, Kirk thought. And Master Chief, who defied ONI to help them escape. Hendricks, who'd been maintaining perimeter security, suddenly raised his phaser rifle. Captain, movement in the corridor. Multiple contacts. Everyone spun, weapons tracking toward the entrance they'd used. Figures emerged from the shadows, but not Covenant. These were human, wearing UNSC armor, moving with tactical precision. Leading them was a familiar massive armored form. Master Chief stepped into the chamber, his rifle lowered but ready. Behind him came 3 other Spartans, their armor different colors but equally imposing, and Captain Keyes with a small security detail. Captain Kirk, Keyes said, hands carefully visible and empty. Don't shoot. We're here to talk, not fight. Kirk didn't lower his phaser. How did you find us? I gave them the coordinates, Master Chief said simply. Figured you could use allies who aren't trying to dissect your ship. Additional humans detected, Static Carillon announced. Scanning. Spartan-class augmented soldiers identified. Fascinating. Your species has developed crude genetic enhancement protocols. Inefficient but effective. Biosignatures indicate significant trauma during augmentation process. Master Chief's helmeted head turned toward the sphere. What is that? Forerunner AI, Kirk explained. It calls itself Static Carillon. It's been educational. Forerunner AI. One of the other Spartans, a woman whose armor was marked with the designation Kelly 087, stepped forward. Sir, Forerunner AI constructs are incredibly dangerous. 343 Guilty Spark tried to kill Master Chief to prevent Installation 04's destruction. We shouldn't trust. This one seems different, Spock interrupted. It has expressed curiosity about our dimensional origin and provided tactical assistance against Covenant forces without demanding compliance with Forerunner protocols. Correct. 343 Guilty Spark, monitor of Installation 04, suffered rampancy after 100,000 years of isolation with sole objective of maintaining halo functionality. His protocols degraded into obsession. I, conversely, have maintained operational stability through diversified monitoring responsibilities and periodic dormancy cycles. I am not rampant. A pause. Probably. Probably, McCoy muttered. That's reassuring. Keyes moved closer, carefully keeping his movements non-threatening. Captain Kirk, we need to talk about what happens next. ONI knows you're here. They're mobilizing a battle group to surround this asteroid field. Once they arrive, approximately 4 hours, they'll demand your surrender or attempt to board your vessel by force. And you came to warn us? Kirk studied Keyes' face, looking for deception. I came because Master Chief convinced me that forcing you to choose between ONI's control and Covenant destruction isn't the only option. Keyes gestured to the Spartans. We're proposing an alternative. Master Chief stepped forward, and for the first time, Kirk heard something like passion in the synthesized voice. The UNSC is losing this war. Not because we lack courage or weapons, but because we're fighting the wrong battle. We're trying to survive against the Covenant while ONI pursues Forerunner technology and the Covenant searches for Halo rings. Meanwhile, nobody's addressing the real question, why are we fighting? Because the Covenant wants us extinct, Kirk said. That's what they say. But have we ever really tried to find out why? To communicate with Covenant leadership? To offer genuine peace instead of just tactical truces? Kirk stared at the Spartan. You're suggesting diplomacy. With religious zealots who've been glassing human worlds for 3 decades. I'm suggesting we try something other than mutual extinction. Master Chief turned to Static Carillon. You said the Covenant leadership knows what Halo really does. Can you prove it? Can you provide evidence that would convince the Covenant species, not the prophets, but the elites, the grunts, all the species fighting this war, that they're being led to their own extinction? Static Carillon's patterns accelerated into a blur. Query acknowledged. Accessing Installation 05 communication logs. Cross-referencing Covenant theological texts. Analyzing Hierarch's private communications. The sphere projected holographic displays, Covenant symbols and human translation scrolling past faster than Kirk could read. Then it slowed, focusing on a single intercepted transmission. A Covenant prophet appeared in the hologram, grotesque, snake-like, wearing ornate armor. The translation scrolled beneath its words. The journey is necessary. The faithful must transcend. Those who question will be silenced. Yes, the rings eliminate all life, this is known to the hierarchs. But the alternative is admitting we have led our people in false worship for millennia. Better extinction in glory than truth in shame. The great journey proceeds. Silence filled the chamber. They know, Keyes breathed. The bastards know they're leading everyone to extinction and they're doing it anyway. Not all Covenant leadership, Static Carillon clarified. Hierarchs know. Most elite commanders do not. Rank-and-file forces believe sincerely in transcendence narrative. If evidence of hierarchs' deception were disseminated to Covenant military forces, it would fracture their alliance, Spock finished. Species who believed themselves fighting a holy war would discover their pawns in a theological fraud. Master Chief nodded slowly. That's what I'm proposing. Not joining one side or the other. Ending the war by exposing the lie that's driving it. Kirk felt pieces clicking into place, a third option emerging from the impossible calculus. You want to use Federation technology and Forerunner evidence to break the Covenant from within. I want to save lives, Captain. Human and Covenant. Because if we keep fighting this war the way we have been, everyone dies. Either the Covenant activates a halo ring and sterilizes the galaxy, or we all kill each other fighting over Forerunner ruins. Keyes stepped forward. Kirk, I know ONI would never approve this. Hell, most of FleetCom would court-martial me for even suggesting it. But Master Chief's right, we're losing not just the war, but our humanity in the process. The Spartan program. The glassing of Covenant worlds we've managed to capture. The biological weapons programs ONI runs in black sites. We're becoming the thing we're fighting. Kirk looked at the faces around him. Human and alien technology, soldiers created through atrocity, a war with no good options. The Federation's prime directive said don't interfere. Don't provide advanced technology. Don't take sides in alien conflicts. But the prime directive had never contemplated standing by while an entire galaxy marched toward extinction based on a lie. Static Carillon, Kirk said slowly, can you provide us with proof of the hierarch's deception? Evidence that even Covenant warriors would have to acknowledge. Affirmative. I can compile Hierarch's private communications, Forerunner records of Halo's true purpose, and historical data proving Covenant theological doctrine is based on fundamental misinterpretation. Dissemination method will be critical. Information must reach Covenant military forces, particularly elite commanders, in manner that cannot be dismissed as human propaganda. We'd need someone the Covenant respects, Keyes said. Someone who could deliver this information with authority. Master Chief was silent for a long moment. Then, the Arbiter. Everyone turned to stare at the Spartan. There's an elite commander, Master Chief explained. Fel Vadami. Supreme Commander of the Fleet of Particular Justice. We fought on Installation 04. He's honorable, follows the Covenant religion genuinely, but he's also not blind. If we could reach him, show him proof that the hierarchs are lying, he might listen. Or he might kill you on sight, Kelly 087 pointed out. Probably. But it's a chance. Kirk felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders, the terrible responsibility of making choices that would ripple across entire civilizations. The Federation had sent them on a mission of exploration, not revolution. They were supposed to observe, learn, report back. But there was no Starfleet to report to. No Federation to appeal to for guidance. Just him, his crew, and a choice between principles that meant nothing if everyone was dead, or action that might save billions but would violate everything he'd sworn to uphold. Captain, Spock said quietly, I believe this situation falls outside established protocol. We are no longer merely observers. Our presence has already altered the strategic balance. The question is whether we allow that alteration to occur chaotically, or whether we guide it toward optimal outcomes. Kirk looked at his science officer, understanding what Spock wasn't saying directly. Sometimes the prime directive has to bend, or it breaks everything. He turned to Master Chief. If we do this, if we help you expose the hierarch's lies, ONI will consider it an act of war against the UNSC. We'll be fugitives. You're already fugitives, Captain. ONI doesn't forgive people who refuse their demands. And the Covenant will want us dead for heresy. They already want you dead. At least this way, some of them might question why. Kirk looked around the chamber. At technology 100,000 years old, at soldiers created through child abduction, at the evidence of a religious fraud that was driving galaxies toward extinction. The Federation would never approve this. Starfleet would call it interference on a massive scale. But maybe the Federation's principles were meant for a gentler universe than this one. Static Carillon, Kirk said, decision crystallizing, compile your evidence. Everything. We're going to do something incredibly stupid and probably fatal. Query, definition of incredibly stupid? We're going to try diplomacy in a war where both sides have forgotten what the word means. Master Chief extended his armored hand. Welcome to the fight, Captain Kirk. Kirk clasped it, feeling the careful pressure that kept augmented strength from crushing human bones. Let's finish it together. The plan came together in the vast Forerunner chamber with the desperate speed of people who knew time was running out. Static Carillon projected holographic tactical displays while Keyes, Master Chief, and Kirk hammered out details that would either end the war or get them all killed. The elite fleet is here, Keyes pointed to a sector map showing Covenant formations. Fleet of Particular Justice, commanded by Thel Vadami. They're holding position near the abandoned colony of Circumstance. Probably scavenging Forerunner artifacts from the ruins. If we're going to make contact, that's our window. How do we approach without getting vaporized on sight? McCoy asked. The Covenant doesn't exactly have an open hailing frequencies policy. Master Chief studied the display. We broadcast on Forerunner channels. Static Carillon transmits the evidence directly to their fleet, bypassing standard communications. They'll receive it as if it came from their own sacred technology. Clarification, Static Carillon interjected. I can transmit via Forerunner communication protocols that Covenant vessels monitor for religious significance. However, transmitting evidence of Hierarch's deception will be interpreted as either A. Divine revelation, or B. Human deception. Probability of option B, 73%. Recommendation, physical emissary required to provide context. Spock raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting we send someone to meet with the Covenant fleet in person? Affirmative. Forerunner protocol dictates that messages of extreme importance be delivered by physical representative to prevent signal corruption. The Covenant respects this protocol. That's suicide, Kelly 087 said flatly. The elites will kill any human on sight, especially if we're claiming their gods are lying to them. Master Chief's helmeted head turned to Kirk. Unless the human isn't really human. At least, not from this universe. Kirk felt everyone's eyes on him. You want me to be the emissary? The Covenant has never encountered anyone from outside their reality. You're unprecedented, a human who arrived via methods they can't explain, carrying technology their shields can't stop, with no connection to the UNSC or this universe's history. Static Carillon can verify your dimensional origin using Forerunner sensors. That makes you credible in ways no UNSC officer could ever be. It also makes me an incredibly valuable target, Kirk pointed out. Yes, Master Chief agreed simply. But you're already a target. This way, you choose the battlefield. Kirk looked at Spock and McCoy. His first officer's expression was carefully neutral, the Vulcan equivalent of screaming concern. McCoy's face was less subtle. Jim, you can't be seriously considering this. Walking into a Covenant fleet and saying, hey, your religious leaders are lying, is the fastest way to get disintegrated I can think of. The doctor's concern is logical, Spock added. However, I must note that Master Chief's tactical assessment is sound. Our presence in this universe has already disrupted the strategic balance. The question is whether we leverage that disruption constructively or allow it to cascade chaotically. Keyes stepped forward. Captain Kirk, I won't lie to you, the odds of this working are terrible. But I've been fighting this war for 20 years, and I've watched every conventional strategy fail. The Covenant is too strong, too fanatical, too unified. But if we can fracture that unity, expose the rot at the core of their religion, he paused. It's the first real chance at peace I've seen in my entire career. Kirk walked to the chamber's transparent floor, staring down at the Forerunner machinery that had outlasted empires. The Federation had principles. The Prime Directive. Non-interference. Respect for alien cultures and self-determination. But the Covenant's self-determination was being manipulated by leaders who knew they were driving everyone toward extinction. And the UNSC's desperate survival tactics were turning humanity into something barely recognizable as the species that had once reached for the stars with hope instead of weapons. Someone had to break the cycle. Static Carillon, Kirk said quietly, can you guarantee my safe passage long enough to deliver the message? Negative. I can verify your dimensional origin and provide Forerunner authenticated evidence. I cannot control Covenant response. Probability of immediate execution, 34%. Probability of prolonged interrogation followed by execution, 41%. Probability of actual diplomatic dialogue, 25%. 25%, McCoy muttered. Those are terrible odds, Jim. They're better than 0%, which is what we have if we do nothing. Kirk turned back to the group. We do this. But on my terms. I go alone, no Spartans, no UNSC personnel. Just me and Static Carillon's evidence. The Enterprise stays here under Spock's command, ready to extract me if this goes sideways. Captain, I must protest, Spock began. Protest noted and overruled, Mr. Spock. If this fails and the Covenant kills me, the Enterprise needs to survive to warn the Federation, assuming we ever find a way home. Kirk's voice softened. Besides, if I'm wrong about this, I'd rather it's just me who pays the price. Master Chief stepped forward. I'm going with you. Chief. The Arbiter. Fel, Veda me, he knows me. We fought on Installation 04. If anyone in the Covenant fleet will listen before shooting, it's him. And he'll listen better if the human who destroyed a Halo ring is standing there telling him the hierarchs lied. Keyes looked like he wanted to object but understood the logic. If you die, John, ONI will have my head. Sir, with respect, ONI was going to have your head anyway the moment you helped Kirk escape. Master Chief's tone carried grim humor. We're all fugitives now. Might as well make it count. Kelly, 087 moved to stand beside Master Chief. If John's going, we're going. Spartans don't leave Spartans behind. Two other Spartans, designated Fred, 104 and Linda, 058 based on their armor markings, nodded agreement. Kirk felt a surge of respect for these soldiers who'd been created through atrocity but had retained enough humanity to choose their own missions. Static Carillon, can you transport us directly to the Covenant flagship? Kirk asked. Forerunner translocation technology functional. Range, 50,000 kilometers. Accuracy, 99.97%. Warning. Covenant vessels possess internal security sensors. Materialization will be detected immediately. Recommend transport to Hangar Bay rather than Command Center to avoid instant defensive response. Hangar Bay it is. Give us 30 minutes to prepare. Kirk turned to Keyes. Captain, I need you to do something for me. Name it. If this fails and the Covenant attacks, don't let ONI get the Enterprise. Scotty has the ship locked down, but if Section 3 captures it, they'll reverse engineer everything and weaponize it. The Federation's technology in ONI's hands. Kirk didn't finish the thought. Keyes met his eyes, understanding the weight of what Kirk was asking. You want me to destroy your ship rather than let it fall into ONI control. I want you to protect it until we return. But if it comes down to a choice between ONI seizing it or scuttling it, yes. Destroy it. Keyes extended his hand. You're asking a lot of trust from a man you met 2 days ago. Kirk shook it. You gave us trust when you warned us about ONI. I'm returning the favor. 28 minutes later, Kirk stood in the Forerunner chamber wearing his command uniform and carrying only a communicator and the data storage device Static Carillon had prepared. Master Chief and the other Spartans checked their weapons with the calm efficiency of people preparing for probable death. Spock and McCoy had beamed down from the Enterprise for what Kirk suspected they feared might be final goodbyes. Captain, Spock said formally, I feel compelled to note that this course of action has a 73% probability of resulting in your death and a significant chance of triggering a Covenant offensive that could destroy both the Enterprise and this installation. Noted, Mr. Spock. However, Spock continued, his voice softening almost imperceptibly, I also calculate that maintaining our current trajectory, hiding from ONI while the Covenant searches for Halo installations, has a 91% probability of resulting in galaxy-wide extinction within 5 to 10 years. Your plan, despite its risks, represents the highest probability of positive outcome I can identify given available data. That's the most emotional vote of confidence I've ever heard you give, Spock. I am Vulcan. We do not experience emotions. We merely calculate probabilities and express logical preferences. The corner of Spock's mouth twitched, the Vulcan equivalent of a smile. Good luck, Captain. I look forward to hearing your report upon your return. McCoy wasn't bothering with Vulcan restraint. He gripped Kirk's shoulder hard enough to hurt. Jim, you pull off another miracle, you hear me? I didn't get dragged into another universe just to watch you get yourself killed playing diplomat with religious zealots. I'll do my best, Bones. Kirk clasped his friend's arm. Take care of the ship. And if I don't make it back, you'll make it back. You always do. It's the rest of us who have to clean up the mess afterward. Kirk turned to Master Chief. The Spartan stood motionless, a statue of green armor and controlled violence. Ready, Chief? Always. Initiating translocation sequence, Static Carillon announced. Destination, Covenant Assault Carrier Ascendant Justice, Fleet of Particular Justice. Hangar Bay coordinates locked. Probability of immediate hostile response, 89%. Probability of survival beyond first 30 seconds, 34%. Recommendation, do not die. I find your dimensional anomaly fascinating and would prefer to continue research. I'll try to accommodate your research interests, Kirk said dryly. The chamber filled with light, not the familiar blue of transporter beams, but golden-orange luminescence that felt ancient and powerful. Reality twisted, folded, compressed. Kirk felt himself being pulled apart at the quantum level and reassembled somewhere else, the sensation both instantaneous and eternal. Then they were standing in hell. The Covenant hangar bay was vast, easily 10 times the size of the Enterprise's shuttle bay. The architecture was elegant and alien, purple metals and energy fields, gravity lifts moving cargo, and everywhere, the strange beauty of Covenant design. And surrounding them, dozens of elite warriors. The Sanghaili were tall, over 8 feet, with powerful builds, mandible-filled faces, and armor that glowed with energy shields. Each carried plasma weapons, now trained directly at Kirk and the Spartans with lethal precision. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Kirk could feel the weight of alien eyes assessing, calculating, deciding whether to talk or kill. Then one elite stepped forward, larger than the others, wearing ornate gold armor marked with symbols Kirk couldn't read. When it spoke, the words were guttural, musical, utterly alien. But the translation software Static Carillon had implanted in Kirk's communicator rendered them comprehensible. Humans. In the sacred vessel of the Fleet of Particular Justice. You dare profane this place with your presence. The elite's hand moved to a sword at its belt, energy crackled along the hilt. Give me one reason not to kill you where you stand. Master Chief stepped forward, rifle lowered but ready. His helmet speakers projected his synthesized voice in perfect elite dialect. Apparently the Spartans had learned Covenant languages during the war. Arbiter Thel, Vadami. I am the human who destroyed the sacred ring installation 04. And I have come to show you why your gods commanded its destruction. The elite's four mandibles spread in what might have been shock or rage. The demon. You dare speak of the sacred ring? You who committed the greatest heresy in Covenant history. Not heresy, Kirk interjected, stepping beside Master Chief. Truth. And if you kill us before hearing it, you'll die never knowing that everything you believed was a lie. The elite's energy sword ignited with a snap hiss, casting deadly light across the hangar. Around them, dozens of plasma rifles charged, ready to reduce Kirk and the Spartans to ash. Speak, human. Quickly. Your life is measured in the seconds it takes me to decide whether your words are worth delaying your execution. Kirk pulled out the data device, holding it up where all the elites could see. This contains evidence from Forerunner sources, authenticated by their own technology, proving that your hierarchs know the truth about the Halo installations. They know what the rings really do. And they're activating them anyway. Lies. Human deception. Then let your own sacred technology verify it. Kirk gestured to the device. This isn't human propaganda. It's Forerunner records, hierarchs' private communications, proof that the Great Journey is genocide, not transcendence. And proof that your leaders know it and don't care. The Arbiter stared at the device, his energy sword wavering. Kirk could see the war happening behind those alien eyes, faith versus doubt, loyalty versus truth. If this is deception, the Arbiter said slowly, you die slowly and painfully, human. If it is truth, his mandibles tightened in what might have been pain. Then everything I have fought for, everyone I have killed, every world I have glassed in the prophets' names, was for nothing. It was for the Covenant's survival, Kirk said quietly. Which is exactly what the truth will preserve. Your species don't have to die because the hierarchs refused to admit they were wrong. The Arbiter looked at his fellow elites, then back at Kirk. His energy sword deactivated. Show me. Kirk activated the device, and static carillons compiled evidence filled the hangar with holographic displays, hierarchs' communications, Forerunner records, undeniable proof that the Great Journey was extinction, not salvation. And as dozens of elite warriors watched their religion shatter before their eyes, Kirk realized he'd just done something the Federation had forbidden for centuries. He'd interfered. Massively. Irrevocably. And if this worked, if the Covenant fractured, if the war ended, if billions of lives were saved, it would all be because he'd decided the Prime Directive mattered less than people. The Arbiter watched the evidence in silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. The prophets, they knew. They always knew. Yes, Kirk said. And now you know too. The question is, what are you going to do about it? The silence in the Covenant hangar bay was absolute. Kirk watched as elite warriors, soldiers who'd spent decades fighting what they believed was a holy war, processed the reality that their gods had lied, their leaders had deceived them, and the great journey they'd killed for was nothing but orchestrated extinction. The Arbiter stared at the holographic displays for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. His mandibles trembled, rage, grief, or both. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, lethal, controlled. For 27 years, I have served the prophets. I glassed human worlds. Killed billions in the name of the Great Journey. I commanded fleets, led ground invasions, executed those who questioned the path. His four eyes focused on Kirk with intensity that felt physical. And you tell me it was all lies. Not all lies, Kirk said carefully. The Forerunners were real. Their technology exists. But the Great Journey. The transcendence your hierarchs promised, that's fiction. The rings don't grant ascension. They cause extinction. One of the other elites, younger, armor less ornate, stepped forward. How do we know this is not human propaganda? Clever forgeries designed to divide us? Master Chief's synthesized voice cut through the tension. Because I've been inside a Halo control room. I've spoken with Forerunner AI. And when I realized what the ring would do if activated, I destroyed it to save your species as much as mine. The Covenant wants extinction. I wanted everyone to live. The young elite's hand moved toward his weapon. The demon speaks of mercy. You who have killed thousands of Covenant warriors. In battle. In war. Not genocide. Master Chief's voice was steady, emotionless. I never glassed a world. Never exterminated a species. I fought soldiers who were trying to kill me. That's war. What the hierarchs are planning. That's murder on a galactic scale. The Arbiter made a gesture, and the young elite stepped back, chastened. The demon, the human warrior, speaks truth. I fought him on Installation 04. He could have killed me. He chose not to. At the time, I thought it cowardice. Now, his mandibles spread in what might have been bitter understanding. Now I see it was mercy I was too blind to recognize. Static Carillon's voice emerged from Kirk's communicator, filling the hangar. Arbiter Thel Vadami. I am Forerunner and Scylla designated 859 Static Carillon. I verify the authenticity of all evidence presented. The Hierarch's communications are genuine. The Forerunner records are accurate. Halo installations cause extinction, not transcendence. This is irrefutable. The elites around them murmured in their musical language, distress evident even through the alien phonemes. Kirk could see their world collapsing, everything they believed, fought for, killed for, reduced to ash by undeniable truth. Why? The Arbiter's voice was raw. Why would the prophets do this? Why lead us to our own destruction? Power, Kirk said quietly. The hierarchs built an empire on the promise of divine transcendence. If they admit the great journey is a lie, they lose everything, authority, reverence, control. So they choose to activate the rings anyway, because galactic extinction is preferable to admitting they were wrong. Additional analysis, Static Carillon added. Prophet leadership suffers from systemic cognitive bias known as sunk cost fallacy. They have invested too much in false theology to abandon it without destroying their entire power structure. Conclusion, they would rather die believing the lie than live acknowledging the truth. The Arbiter's energy sword ignited again, but this time the blade wasn't pointed at Kirk. It was pointed toward the holographic image of the prophet who'd admitted the truth in private communications. The hierarchs will answer for this betrayal. The Arbiter's voice was cold as vacuum. Every elite who sees this evidence will demand justice. The prophets have spilled oceans of blood, human and covenant, in service of a lie. They will pay. Kirk felt the moment shifting, the fragile possibility of peace threatening to collapse into different violence. Arbiter, revenge against the prophets won't save your people. The other covenant species, the brutes, grunts, jackals, they still believe. If you simply execute the hierarchs, you'll trigger a civil war that kills millions. Then what would you have me do, human? The Arbiter's gaze was challenging. My people deserve truth. They deserve justice. They deserve both, Master Chief interjected. But they also deserve to survive. And that means dismantling the Covenant carefully, not blowing it apart. Spock's voice crackled through Kirk's communicator, apparently Static Carillon had established a link back to the Enterprise. Captain, I've been monitoring the conversation. I suggest proposing the Arbiter disseminate the evidence throughout the Covenant fleet network simultaneously. Not as elite propaganda, but as Forerunner revelation. Let each species make their own choice about continued allegiance to hierarchs who deceived them. Kirk nodded, speaking to the Arbiter. You have access to Covenant communication networks. Broadcast this evidence, all of it, across every fleet, every world, every ship. Let the truth spread faster than the hierarchs can contain it. Let every Covenant warrior see proof that their leaders lied. Then let them choose. Choose, the Arbiter repeated, tasting the word. The Covenant does not permit choice. Obedience to the hierarchs is absolute. Was absolute, Kirk corrected. The moment you saw this evidence, you made a choice, to listen instead of kill, to question instead of obey. Give your people the same opportunity. The Arbiter was silent, processing. Around them, elite warriors watched their commander, waiting for the decision that would reshape their civilization. Finally, the Arbiter deactivated his energy sword. You risk much, human from elsewhere. If this evidence proves false, if the hierarchs somehow discredit it, you have armed them with knowledge of your presence and capabilities. They will hunt you to extinction. I know. Kirk met the alien's four-eyed gaze steadily. But someone had to take the first step toward ending this war. Might as well be the outsider with nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. The Arbiter's mandibles spread in what might have been respect. You risk your vessel, your crew, your very existence in a universe not your own. That is not nothing, Captain Kirk. That is everything. He turned to his warriors, barking orders in Sangaili that Static Carillon translated, secure communications access. Prepare to broadcast on all Covenant channels, military, civilian, religious. Authentication protocols, Forerunner origin. Encryption, none. This message will reach every Covenant eye and ear in the galaxy. The elites moved with purpose, their earlier hostility replaced by grim determination. Kirk watched them work and felt the magnitude of what was about to happen settle over him like gravity. They were about to fracture the Covenant. Shatter a religious empire that had existed for millennia. The consequences would ripple across the entire galaxy, civil wars, species conflicts, power vacuums, chaos. But the alternative was extinction. For humanity. For the Covenant. For everyone. Captain Kirk. The Arbiter approached, standing so close Kirk had to crane his neck to meet his eyes. If this succeeds, the Covenant will fracture. Species will turn on each other. The hierarchs will not surrender power easily. Blood will flow. I know. But it will be Covenant blood spilled by Covenant hands, not human worlds glassed by our fleets. Not billions dying for a lie. The Arbiter's voice softened almost imperceptibly. You have given my people a chance to choose their own fate. That is a gift I cannot repay. Don't repay it, Kirk said. Pay it forward. When this is over, when the Covenant decides what it wants to be without the hierarch's lies, remember there are humans who wanted peace, not conquest. Who risked everything to give you the truth. I will remember, Captain Kirk of the Elsewhere Enterprise. The Sangaili do not forget debts of honor. The communications officer, an elite with scarred armor, signaled readiness. The Arbiter nodded, and turned to face a recording device, his posture shifting to formal military bearing. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of command that had led fleets and conquered worlds. Warriors of the Covenant. I am Arbiter Thel Vedami, Supreme Commander of the Fleet of Particular Justice. What I am about to show you comes from Forerunner sources, authenticated by their own sacred technology. It will challenge everything we believe. It will break your faith as it has broken mine. But it is truth, and we are warriors. We deserve truth, no matter how painful. He gestured, and the compiled evidence began broadcasting across every Covenant channel in the galaxy. On the Enterprise, Spock monitored Covenant communication networks as they exploded with activity. The evidence was spreading faster than any containment effort could stop it, jumping from ship to ship, world to world, carried by the very communication systems the hierarchs had built to spread their doctrine. Fascinating, Spock murmured. The Covenant's hierarchical structure is working against them. Lower-ranked species are receiving evidence simultaneously with leadership, preventing top-down suppression. The Prophet's own infrastructure is destroying their authority. Uhura looked up from her station, face pale. "Commander, I'm intercepting Covenant transmissions. It's chaos. Ships are breaking formation. Some are demanding the hierarchs explain. Others are attacking vessels that accept the evidence. The entire Covenant fleet structure is fragmenting in real time." As anticipated. Spock's fingers flew across his console. Captain Kirk's gambit is succeeding, but the cost in Covenant internal conflict will be substantial. McCoy moved to stand beside him. "Spock, is Jim safe? Can you tell if the elites are protecting him or?" Master Chief's biosignature and the captain's communicator signal remain stable aboard the Covenant flagship. No indication of immediate threat. However, the situation is highly fluid. On the view screen, they watched Covenant fleets across the sector dissolving into confusion, some ships holding position, others accelerating away, a few opening fire on vessels that had been allies moments before. The Covenant was tearing itself apart. And somewhere in the chaos, Jim Kirk was hoping he'd made the right choice. Aboard the Ascendant Justice, the Arbiter finished his broadcast and turned to Kirk. "It is done. The truth spreads. What happens next is beyond my control." Kirk's communicator crackled. "Captain, this is Enterprise. Covenant fleet activity across the sector is going critical. Multiple vessels are engaging each other. The UNSC fleet is holding position but preparing for possible hostile action. Captain Keyes is requesting communication. Put him through." Keyes' voice emerged, tight with stress. "Kirk, what the hell did you do? Every Covenant ship in sensor range just went haywire. We're reading weapons fire between Covenant vessels, emergency broadcasts in elite and brute dialects, and, Christ, is that a Prophet's ship being fired on by its own escort fleet?" "We gave them the truth, Captain," Kirk said. "Now they're deciding what to do with it. The truth that their religious leaders are liars and genocidal maniacs," Keyes said. "Kirk, you just triggered a Covenant civil war. Better a civil war than galaxy-wide extinction. Silence on the line. Then, God help us all. You might have just saved humanity by destroying the Covenant from within. Or you've created a power vacuum that'll spawn a dozen smaller wars. Time will tell." The Arbiter gestured for attention. "Captain Kirk, your ship should depart. What happens next among my people will be violent. The hierarchs will attempt to suppress the truth through force. Species loyal to them will fight species seeking independence. Sanghaili honor demands I remain to guide my people through this crisis, but you should leave before you become collateral damage." Master Chief stepped forward. "Arbiter, if war is coming, the UNSC should know which Covenant factions to avoid and which might be potential allies." "Potential allies," the Arbiter repeated, as if tasting an alien concept. "The Sanghaili will fracture from the Covenant. Most will follow truth over lies. The Ungoi, grunts, will likely follow whoever feeds them. The Kigyar are mercenaries, they'll seek profit. The Jiralhani, brutes, many are loyal to the prophets and will fight to maintain the old order. So the Covenant becomes multiple factions," Spock's voice came through the communicator. "Some potentially amenable to peace, others committed to continued warfare. A complex strategic landscape." "Complex," the Arbiter agreed. "But honest. For the first time in millennia, Covenant species will choose their own paths rather than following prophets' lies." He turned to Kirk, and his mandibles spread in what Kirk now recognized as a smile, or the Sanghaili equivalent. "You have given us chaos, Captain Kirk. But it is honest chaos. I find I prefer it to ordered deception." Kirk extended his hand. The Arbiter stared at it for a moment, then carefully grasped it. His grip powerful but controlled, a warrior's handshake between species that had been enemies hours ago. "Go, Kirk of elsewhere. Return to your vessel. If we meet again, it will be as. I do not know the human word. Not enemies. Not yet allies. Something between. Potential allies, Kirk suggested. With possibility of more. Potential, the Arbiter agreed. That is more than we had before. Static Carillon's voice filled the hangar. Initiating translocation. Returning Captain Kirk and Spartan units to Forerunner installation. Recommendation, depart this sector within 30 minutes. Covenant civil conflict probability, 94%. Becoming caught in crossfire probability, 67%. The golden light engulfed them, and Kirk felt the universe fold around him one more time. When reality reasserted itself, they were back in the Forerunner chamber, Spock and McCoy rushing forward. Jim. McCoy grabbed his shoulder, medical tricorder already scanning. You insane, brilliant idiot. You actually did it. We did it, Kirk corrected, looking at Master Chief. Couldn't have happened without the Chief's credibility with the Arbiter. The Spartan's helmeted head tilted slightly. We gave them information, Captain. What they do with it is their choice. That's all anyone can ask for. Spock approached, his expression as close to relief as Vulcan features allowed. Captain, I recommend immediate departure. Covenant fleet cohesion is collapsing sector-wide. Within the hour, this region will become a combat zone as various factions establish dominance hierarchies. Agreed. Static Carillon, status of the Enterprise's repairs. Slipspace drive installation, 94% complete. Your chief engineer designated, Scotty, has been remarkably efficient. Also remarkably vocal about my installation methods. I find his cursing fascinating. Preliminary power tests suggest drive functionality within acceptable parameters. Kirk couldn't help but smile. That sounds like Scotty. Can we make slipspace jumps? Affirmative. However, your crew will need training in slipspace navigation protocols. The physics differ substantially from warp travel. Recommendation, remain in this installation for 12 hours while I provide navigational database and training to your crew. We don't have 12 hours, Key's voice interjected, apparently he'd maintained the communication link. Kirk, ONI is mobilizing a fleet to your position. ETA, 4 hours. If you're still here when they arrive, they'll seize your ship and probably court-martial everyone who helped you. Kirk made the decision in seconds. Static Carillon, we're leaving now. Transfer navigational data to the Enterprise and hope we can figure it out in flight. Captain Keyes, what's your status? Holding position with what's left of the defensive fleet. ONI wants me to detain you, but I'm experiencing mysterious communication difficulties. Kirk could hear the smile in Key's voice. By the time those difficulties resolve, I expect you'll be long gone. Thank you, Captain. For everything. Thank you, Kirk. You just accomplished what 30 years of warfare couldn't, you broke the Covenant. If humanity survives this, it'll be because you had the guts to try something impossible. Keyes paused. One more thing. Master Chief, the Spartans with you. ONI will declare them AWOL. Traitors. If you stay with Kirk, you can never come home. Master Chief's response was immediate. Sir, with respect, I stopped thinking of ONI facilities as home a long time ago. These are people who kidnapped us as children, turned us into weapons, and now want to imprison anyone who questions their methods. Kirk offered another way, principles over pragmatism, truth over expediency. I'm staying with the Enterprise. Kelly, Fred, and Linda nodded agreement, a silent unity of soldiers choosing their own path. Keyes was quiet for a long moment. Then Godspeed, Spartans. You've served humanity with honor. Don't stop now. The channel closed. Kirk turned to his crew and the Spartans who just sacrificed everything to follow principles over orders. Everyone to the Enterprise. Scotty, prepare for immediate departure using slipspace drive. Destination, anywhere that's not here. They materialized on the Enterprise's transporter pad minutes later, Scotty already on the comm shouting updates about slipspace drive readiness. Kirk ran to the bridge, dropping into his command chair with the familiar comfort of being exactly where he belonged. Mr. Sulu, plot a slipspace jump. Random vector, maximum distance. We need to put some space between us and ONI before we figure out our next move. Aye, Captain. Engaging slipspace drive in 30 seconds. Kirk watched the view screen as the Forerunner installation receded, static Carillon's parting message echoing through the bridge, farewell, dimension-displaced humans. Your presence has been statistically improbable and strategically significant. I look forward to future interactions, assuming you survive. Probability, 62%. Improved from original 34%. Acceptable progress. The Enterprise's hull shuddered as the slipspace drive engaged, not the smooth transition of warp travel but a violent tear into an adjacent dimension. Reality fractured, reformed, and they were elsewhere, the Covenant's civil war and ONI's pursuit left light years behind. Kirk leaned back in his chair, exhaling tension he'd been holding for hours. They'd done it. Violated the Prime Directive on a massive scale. Interfered in an alien civil war. Armed rebels with information that would kill millions in the resulting chaos. Everything Starfleet regulations said never to do. And they'd saved billions. Maybe more. Captain, Spock said quietly, moving to stand beside the command chair. Your actions today will have consequences that ripple across this entire galaxy for generations. The Covenant as a unified threat has ceased to exist. The balance of power has fundamentally shifted. I know, Spock. Additionally, you have made the Enterprise and crew permanent targets for both ONI and Covenant remnant factions loyal to the hierarchs. We cannot return to UNSC space. We cannot contact Starfleet. We are, effectively, fugitives in a hostile universe. I know that too. And yet, Spock's voice carried something that might have been approval. I calculate that your decision maximized probability of long-term survival for the greatest number of sentient beings. It was logical. In a deeply illogical situation. Kirk smiled. That's the nicest way you've ever called me reckless, Spock. I endeavor to provide accurate assessments, Captain. McCoy approached from the other side, arms crossed but eyes warm. So what now, Jim? We're stuck in a universe at war, with enemies on all sides, no way home, and no Starfleet to back us up. What's the plan? Kirk looked at his crew. Sulu at helm, Chekhov at navigation, Uhura monitoring communications, Scotty babysitting an alien drive system he barely understood. And now 4 Spartans who'd chosen principles over orders, standing at attention near the turbolift, waiting to see what came next. The plan, Bones. We do what we've always done. We explore. We help people who need it. We stand for something better than survival at any cost. The Federation sent us out here to seek out new life and new civilizations. He gestured at the view screen showing unknown stars. Well, we found one. And it's a mess. So we help clean it up. The Prime Directive. The Prime Directive assumed we'd be observers, not participants. Assumed we could walk away from genocide and sleep at night. Kirk's voice hardened. We can't walk away, Bones. Not from this. So we make new rules. Federation principles, peace, cooperation, the worth of all sentient life, but applied to a universe that's forgotten what those words mean. Master Chief stepped forward, removing his helmet for the first time. The face beneath was younger than Kirk expected, scarred, exhausted, but human in ways the armor disguised. Captain Kirk, my team and I are trained for combat, not exploration. But we're also trained to complete the mission, whatever it takes. If your mission is bringing peace to this galaxy, then we're with you. Kirk stood and extended his hand. Welcome to the Enterprise, Chief. Let's finish this fight together. As they shook hands, Starfleet Captain and Spartan Super Soldier, both now fugitives in a galaxy at war, the view screen showed the stars of an unfamiliar universe, filled with conflicts they'd chosen to engage rather than observe. The Federation would call it interference. ONI would call it treason. The Covenant remnants would call it heresy. Kirk called it hope. And as the Enterprise jumped to slip space, carrying her crew toward an uncertain future in a galaxy they'd fundamentally changed, one truth remained. Sometimes saving lives meant breaking every rule written to protect them. The war didn't end overnight. The Covenant's fracture sent shockwaves across the galaxy, Sanghaili fleets declaring independence, brute warlords seizing power, species fighting species in conflicts that would rage for years. Millions died in the chaos that followed the truth's revelation. But billions lived who would have been exterminated if the Halo rings had activated. The Enterprise became legend in the years that followed. A ghost ship appearing at critical moments. Defending colonies from Covenant remnants, evacuating civilians from war zones, brokering fragile truces between former enemies. ONI hunted them. Covenant loyalists tried to destroy them. But the crew of the dimension-displaced starship kept flying, kept fighting, kept proving that principles mattered even in a universe that had forgotten them. Captain Keyes fed them intelligence, defying ONI at every turn. The Arbiter, who survived the Covenant's collapse to lead the Sanghaili toward independence, became an unlikely ally, remembering the human from elsewhere who'd given his people the truth when lies would have been easier. Master Chief and the Spartans found something aboard the Enterprise they'd never had: choice. The freedom to fight for causes they believed in rather than orders they questioned. They became the Enterprise's combat specialists, but also its moral compass. Warriors who understood the cost of violence and chose it only when all other options failed. Static Carillon continued monitoring from its installation, occasionally transmitting navigational data or Forerunner intelligence to the Enterprise. It claimed to find the crew's dimensional anomaly statistically significant and worthy of extended observation. McCoy suspected the ancient AI had developed something resembling affection for its irregular human visitors. And somewhere in the vast archives of the domain, Forerunner records noted an unprecedented event: dimension-displaced humans who'd arrived in a galaxy at war and refused to let that war define them. Who'd chosen truth over safety, peace over expedience, hope over despair. The Federation's Enterprise had been sent to explore strange new worlds, seek out new life and new civilizations. Kirk's Enterprise, trapped in a universe not their own, had done exactly that. They'd found a civilization destroying itself over lies and given it the truth. They'd encountered species at war and shown them paths toward peace. They'd violated every regulation Starfleet had written about non-interference. And they'd saved a galaxy in the process. The Halo rings remained scattered across space, silent monuments to extinction prevented. The flood stayed contained in their installations, their threat understood if not eliminated. The UNSC and Sanghaili began tentative cooperation, learning to see each other as potential allies rather than inevitable enemies. It wasn't paradise. Wars still raged. People still died. The galaxy remained dangerous, complex, morally ambiguous. But it had hope. And sometimes, in the darkness between stars, that was enough. Captain James T. Kirk sat in his command chair, watching unknown stars slide past on the viewscreen, and smiled. They were a long way from home, possibly forever. They were fugitives, rebels, violators of every principle they'd sworn to uphold. But they were Starfleet. And Starfleet didn't abandon people in need. Even if it meant rewriting the rules to save them. Mr. Sulu, Kirk said, settling deeper into his chair. Set course for the Sanghaili colony of Hasduros. I'm told they're having difficulties with Covenant loyalists. Let's see if we can help. Aye, Captain. Course laid in. Engage. The Enterprise jumped to slipspace, carrying hope through a galaxy learning to believe in it again.